Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's council meeting, to members of council, staff, and members of the public, those watching on the live stream and those who've joined us on the Zoom call this evening. This is our regular meeting for Wednesday, June the 22nd. And we have quorum, so I will call this meeting to order and let you know that this meeting is being audio, video recorded and live streamed on the Towns of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which is retained in accordance to the town's retention bylaw. And you can contact the clerk's office if you want more information about how these records are retained. And I will now go to Councillor Ices and ask if he would please deliver the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am very proud to do that today, especially after yesterday being the National Indigenous Peoples Day, and I know our town had a wonderful flag raising in the morning, and the day is on the summer solstice yesterday, the longest day of the year, so there's definitely some significance to that. So the land acknowledgement statement. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that the town is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledged that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. And we thank them for generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now we are on item 2, which is open forum. So I'll ask the clerk. Oh, there's 2 people that have registered for open forum today. So the first person who would wish to speak is James Bell. And Mr. Bell, if I'd ask you to please turn on your video and audio whenever you're ready, and you can proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. It's a pleasure to see you again. And members of council, thank you for hearing me this evening. This matter of Heritage Register was first brought to my attention. Mr. Kevin Jacob, the assistant clerk, who's been very helpful through this matter, brought it to my attention. I did send him back a letter, Mayor Dolan. I don't know whether you folks have it in your possession, but if you don't, I'd just like to quickly read it and then make one more statement.
We do have your letter, Mr. Bell. It's actually on our agenda for this evening.
Okay, great. I'll leave it at that then. And the other points I'll just briefly go through. We were not properly notified of this matter, and it wasn't until Assistant Clerk Jacob informed me in February that this motion would be going ahead at the next council meeting. We had no idea until this matter was upon us and my family. It also should be noted, which you'll see in the letter about these buildings and about our rezoning. We are a property that's now AG 23 SP. We primarily do weddings here, and I'm very proud of my family. They've been doing a wonderful job. Of course, all of us have had challenges through COVID, but this year looks like a banner year for us and Innisfil. It should also be noted that when I paid a large development fee to the town, I was assured by the Innisfil's then acting CAO, Mr. John Skorobahach, that other than town rules, of course, our liquor license and public safety measures, no further building classifications or restrictions would be put upon our property. In closing, we strongly oppose any heritage designation imposed on our house. I respectfully ask all members of Innisfil Council to support us in this matter. And I thank you very much for giving me this time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Now that item is on our agenda tonight. It's item C8. And so if you're welcome to turn your camera off and your audio off, but stay on the Zoom meeting if you like. Or you could also log off and watch it on live stream, whichever suits you. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Mr. Bell. The next open forum participant is Ashley Mountford, and she wants to speak regarding the staff report on short-term accommodations. Ashley, whenever you're ready, please turn on your video and your audio.
Excuse me, Your Worship, I don't believe that she has joined the meeting this evening.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, Deputy Clerk, just reaching out and sending her a note. Maybe she had some technical difficulties getting on, but if she wanted to send it in via email, we could do it that way, but then we'll just carry forward. Thank you. All right, so item number 3 is the approval of the agenda. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I'll ask Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Ices to move and second the agenda as amended to include the delegation request for this evening. All those in favor? That's carried. Item number 4, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or conflict of interest on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you during our discussions, please bring it forward at that time, and the clerk will make sure that you have the forms that you're required to sign. So then we'll go to item number 5, which is presentations and petitions. We have none for this evening. And number 6, we have delegations, and we have our first delegation this evening is Carolina Cotillo, the project manager for roads, traffic, and transportation, to talk to us about our transportation master plan highlights. Welcome, Carolina.
Good evening, Your Worship, and good evening to council, to the public, and to members of staff who might be watching this. I'm here tonight to tell you everyone a little bit about our transportation master plan update. So I'm representing a team of staff from a variety of different departments, as well as outside participants and, of course, our consultant team. And we're here to give you a project update, including the key study recommendations. We have released the draft of the Transportation Master Plan on our Get Involved website for everyone to review. And we're hoping that this will give everyone an idea of what we've learned and what new recommendations we've come up with. So last time we updated our Transportation Master Plan was in 2018. At that time, we looked at planned transportation improvements to 2031 and a few improvements beyond that time. But since then, a lot has changed in the town. Just as a reminder, since the last time we did an update back in 2018, we've had an opportunity to see operational successes with our Innisfil Transit partnership with Uber. We've developed plans for the new Orbit community. We've initiated a lot of strategic studies, including the Land and Lakes plan that has a trail component. Simcoe County has projected and allocated additional growth to the town through the year 2051, which is the study horizon for the new study. And the province of Ontario has updated the transportation plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And Simcoe County has also initiated an update to their transportation master plan. So the new transportation master plan update takes into account all of these different changes. It builds upon the last plan uses these changes to provide context and gives us a strategy through to 2051. We've engaged stakeholders, including direct consultation with other agencies, engagement with Indigenous communities, 2 public open houses, a variety of surveys, and we've also included our school zone traffic safety advisory committee. So draft copy of the plan has been prepared in advance of this meeting. It is available on our Get Involved website, or it is linked to in the agenda for this meeting. And with that, I will hand the presentation over to Ray Backey from RJ Burnside to walk us through some of the findings and recommendations of the new plan.
Okay, thank you, Carolina, and to you, Madam Mayor, and members of council. Thank you for this opportunity today to present our findings and update on the Transportation Master Plan. In our previous presentations through public open house meetings, we presented background information on the existing transportation system and the previous plans for improvement. They describe the transportation needs, the alternative strategies, solution strategies, and our evaluation process for these strategies. In this presentation this evening, we will go over the Transportation Master Plan process, how it has followed the municipal class environmental assessment process, and then we'll focus the presentation on the draft recommendations for road network, active transportation network, transit system, and supporting TMP policies and initiatives. So this, sorry, next slide, and then the next slide. This Transportation Master Plan has been a public process. We've facilitated a number of public engagement events over the last 12 months. This includes consultation meetings with government agencies, public open houses, other events specific to the TMP, including public surveys. The study also included coordination with other groups, as Carolina mentioned, including the School Zone Traffic Safety Committee. We coordinated with the Land and Lake Master Plan, consulted with, engaged with Indigenous communities, and we have been quite involved with a number of technical advisory committee meetings led by the county on their Transportation Master Plan. And we've been working to, as much as possible, ensure that the 2 TMPs are aligned. Next slide, please. The scope of the study has included addressing needs and opportunities, as Carolina had mentioned, to 2051 for all modes of travel, auto, transit, active transportation. We've incorporated the policy objectives, including corporate policy objectives, including environmental sustainability, objectives towards equity in transportation, and climate change mitigation. We've accommodated growth to 2051 and beyond. We've used the information that has been provided related to the MCR allocation to the town and our best assessment of how that future population and employment will be distributed. We've supported existing and future land uses. We recognize both stable communities and sort of cultural heritage features, and we've developed what we trust is a well-integrated, multimodal, and sustainable network. Carolina touched upon the changes since the last 2018 TMP, of course, the growth to 2051, and that as our horizon year. The effects and needs of the orbit community and the recent Uber partnership successes and lessons learned. Next slide, please. The TMP has followed the first 2 phases of the municipal class environmental assessment process. This is a very busy figure, my apologies. The actual full environmental assessment approval and detailed design of specific recommendations will follow in subsequent studies. But this TMP has included the first phase of the EA process, where we identified the transportation needs and opportunities and established a vision. And the second phase, where we established a preferred solution strategy, which identified improvements for the three transportation modes: road, transit, and active transportation. And we've also incorporated innovative technology initiatives. And this preferred strategy builds upon the 2018 town TMP. We presented this overall strategy in the second public open house and the second technical advisory committee, along with other agencies, and fine-tuned these recommendations based on public stakeholder input and additional analysis. Next slide, please. So in this following section, we restate the vision of the TMP, and we'll go into the details of the recommendations that address the vision for the three transportation modes. It also includes draft recommendation for the county's TMP presented to town staff on March 23rd and subsequent meetings. Next slide, please. So just as a recap, the vision for the Transportation Master Plan is Innisfil's transportation system connects people and communities, fosters healthy living, and operates innovatively and efficiently across the town as an environmentally and financially sustainable, resilient system ready for the future. And that's a lot. That's a lot, and it's ambitious. But the following components are really the keys to what we see as the plan to this vision. Next slide, please. Through the latter part of the Innisfil Transportation Master Plan, we've been in consultation with the county, as noted, and the findings of their ongoing master plan have been presented to us through those meetings. This slide shows the county's TMP draft road recommendations, which for Innisfil, the key components are a widening of Yonge Street to 4 lanes, which is already in the planning process and in the EA and design process. The jurisdictional transfer of 6th line to the county and its interchange with Highway 400, and emphasis on exploring a Highway 89 east-west link improvement around Cookstown. Next slide, please. This slide is also a busy slide. It goes into the detail on the road recommendations for the town that are in addition to the plans from the last Innisfil TMP. It includes the assumption of the orbit lands that would be built to 29,000 people by 2051, and we recognize that orbit will continue to grow beyond the 2051 time horizon of this study. So as noted in the recommendation in the first, the road widenings, which is the number 1 item in the slide, traffic forecasts have indicated that there will be a need to widen 20th Side Road as development proceeds within the west side of the corridor in Barrie, so adjacent to the boundary with Barrie. This is noted in recommendation 2 or bullet point 2 and bullet point 10. Traffic forecasts have indicated heavy traffic volumes beyond the capacity of 4 lanes anticipated on both 6th line and Innisfil Beach Road between Highway 400 and Alcona. These heavy volumes will be congested and will increase further beyond the horizon year of 2051 with further development in orbit. So our analysis shows that a widening of one of these 2 road segments or one of these 2 corridors to 6 lanes would alleviate the traffic on both Innisfil Beach Road and 6th line, but we are sensitive to the fact that a 6-lane road would result in a less appealing, less livable street. So we're recommending that mobility solutions of all modes be studied further together with the further plans of the orbit. So we can make a recommendation and recommend protection for widening to 6 lanes, but that is perhaps inconsistent with some of the vision for these streets. We are at an early stage of transit planning and operation within the town, and that given that Orbit will continue to grow, that we are recommending this a corridor specific study for sixth line be undertaken with that longer vision of Orbit and a longer vision of transit solutions be undertaken. And that we do highlight that here, given our 2051 time horizon, because there may be a need for right-of-way protection that comes out of this subsequent study. It is a bit difficult because Orbit its orientation along 6th line is really a focus on sixth line, and we want to be cognizant of, as Orbit develops, that we have a strategy to accommodate the full development of Orbit. So what does this mean? This means including or initiating future EA studies and coordinating this with the Orbit secondary plan, which is in process now, and the transportation study associated with that. The public right-of-way should consider alternatives such as dedicated or transit priority along 6th line. The next items, as noted in recommendations 3, 4, and 5, through discussions with the town, we have also determined that further investigation should be explored through environmental assessment addendums for 6th line, 7th, and 7th line. We note that an EA study has not been undertaken to date for 7th line between Yonge Street and 20th Side Road. It would be important to study this corridor and how it may be affected by recommendations from the adjacent EA addendums on either side, which is sort of highlighted in recommendation number 6 here. There are other site-specific areas requiring further study of alternative strategies. Future traffic projections indicate capacity constraints on King Street South in Cookstown. The next slide identifies issues and potential solutions to be studied further with local stakeholder engagement, reflecting recommendation number 7. Recommendation number 8, and I think I should have, yeah, I think I hinted there that we move forward, but maybe just a couple more points on this slide. Recommendation number 8 relates to the need for improved capacity along 14th line, given the current pavement condition, and suggesting road reconstruction will improve roadway capacity while keeping 2 total lanes. This recommendation is consistent with what is planned in the new Tecumseh TMP, which also recommends an upgrading of the pavement type, the surface type. And then recommendation 9 identifies the need to address future capacity constraints on Innisfil Beach Road and the need to provide additional capacity or mobility solutions between Jans Boulevard and Adullam Avenue. Recommendation number 10 relates to capacity constraints on Innisfil Beach Road, which we've talked about. And then for recommendation 11, our model is showing some congestion in a small segment of 13th line between 25th Side Road and Friday Drive. Friday Harbor is a main attraction, especially over the next 30 years. We see that through discussions with the town, it's a preferred route to access Friday Harbor. So we'll be recommend monitoring the intersections approaching Friday Harbor and the operations there. Sorry, next slide now. Thank you. There are both physical constraints and significant cultural heritage features of Cookstown that is of value, but as traffic volumes are increasing, we are anticipating both east-west capacity constraints and north-south capacity constraints on 27 through Cookstown. A subsequent study is recommended. A parking study would explore the potential for parking supply solutions to meet the future parking demand while addressing road capacity within the existing road infrastructure. And these solutions may include peak hour, peak direction, on-street parking restrictions or limitations for periods of the day to temporarily allow for additional capacity. This may be compensated for by additional off-street parking supply when it is needed. These types are typically done involving stakeholder engagement specific to the local residences and businesses and potentially BIAs and commuters through the area to ensure that they're all aligned in support of any operational and parking recommendations. Next slide, please. The 2051 Ultimate Road Network, if all recommendations were implemented, are shown on this slide, as well as a summary of the road-related recommendations. The improvements include 20th Side Road grade separations identified in the previous 2018 TMP. We note that there will be the potential need for additional solutions for the 6th line corridor. Next slide, please. This figure illustrates the major county active transportation routes. The draft county TMP currently recommends additional off-road trails along Yonge Street and on-road routes along Innisfil Beach Road. Next slide, please. Based on the connectivity and continuity principles between major points of interest, a series of additional active transportation routes are recommended in this study, in the Transportation Master Plan study. Generally, the focus is providing more protected multi-use trails around Alcona, which will have higher traffic volumes and paved shoulders in areas with less population density and less traffic. The multi-use paths to Friday Harbor was originally planned as a paved shoulder from the last Trails Master Plan. We did identify Friday Harbor as a major attraction for visitors with high potential for active trips. Through our assessment and public consultation, Big Bay Point Road is also a major active transportation route for families and students who are employed there. The assessment warranted the increase in protection to a multi-use path. Currently planned facilities identified in the last TMP or prior are identified in this figure, including dedicated cycle lanes in light green, boulevard multi-use trails in dashed blue, and paved shoulders in dashed yellow. Additional opportunities include multi-use path opportunities are shown in blue-black dashed lines from Mapleview Drive to Friday Harbor and along 5th line. Additional paved shoulder opportunities are shown along 4th line, 7th line, and 10th line. We also note that one of the benefits of shoulder bike lanes or paved shoulders with allocation for cycling facility with sufficient width is that they can also better accommodate other modes of travel, such as agricultural vehicles or buggies, which may need the additional space for convenient movement and safety. Next slide, please. Through the TMP, we performed a sidewalk gap analysis and have made recommendations to where sidewalks could be added to make the sidewalk network more complete. I just wanted to highlight that one area along Maple Road, Ewart Street, and St. John's The intent here was to create one continuous corridor between Lefroy and Alcona and Innisfil Beach. Sidewalk prioritization was based on a combination of origin destination linkages, our assessment of the collision history, and stakeholder consultation, stakeholder input. Next slide, please. Another opportunity identified in the last technical advisory committee meeting is a lake adjacent trail providing a route around Lake Simcoe. Such a facility would require coordination between the town, the county, York Region, and local municipal partners. Within Innisfil, the TMP proposed active transportation network can contribute to this concept with a variety of paved shoulders and multi-use trails and sharrows. In addition to infrastructure modifications, the initiative would likely involve signage and marketing and branding and mapping and other elements. This would make the trail sort of a very attractive to tourists. And York Region is currently undertaking something similar in their lake-to-lake connection. Next slide, please. At the TMP level, transit is usually recommended at a fairly high level. Through our assessment, the Innisfil TMP did identify additional transit needs that exist right now for the town. And addressing transit needs are sort of in line with the town's official plan transit mode share policy, a target of 20%. The TMP identifies possible routes and a range of frequencies and headways and associated costs. We did not, however, recommend a particular operator or governance structure. That would require additional sort of insights and commitments from council. We would need to have a benefit cost assessment and council direction on the funding commitments and an understanding of the town role relative to the county role in providing transit services. We propose that the analysis to date be considered in guidance as guidance to a transit specific implementation strategy study. Next slide, please. We note that the town is not currently directly served by County Links Transit, the County Links Transit system. The service is adjacent and linking to Bradford and other communities, other local municipalities. The county, through its ongoing TMP, is considering a transit plan and current transit recommendations that include implementation of a consolidated regional transit model. So the governance, it appears that the governance would be more at the regional level. That is what is being considered. The town is currently discussing, through our meetings, discussing the impacts of this recommendation. Next slide, please. So we have worked, and the town has worked with Ryerson University, who have been analyzing data and modeling transit demand using the available Uber data. They've recommended that incorporating a dedicated on-demand rideshare service on top of the existing non-dedicated Uber transit service. These could be provided in the short to medium term to address the transit reliability and efficiencies and as transit ridership grows, together with the future GO Rail station. We've identified scheduled fixed route transit options. These routes can evolve from the on-demand transit services. The timing and implementation of scheduled fixed routes would be based on observed and anticipated demand, on town council commitment to funding, and the role of the county versus the town and other transit providers. The town's TMP study documents the analysis, the approach, the estimated net cost based on projected ridership and revenue for future consideration. So we've done much of that analysis. But as noted, the transit-specific benefit cost and implementation study is recommended prior to implementation, particularly given the fair bit of uncertainty as we move forward. So, and now this is a figure that we've actually shown in a recent professional conference, but the CMP recommends a transit implementation strategy that evolves over time. It's anticipated that the current Uber partnership could evolve into a town-operated on-demand transit service, and then fixed route transit for key routes. It's recommended that the town remain flexible as changes to travel patterns will occur due to the construction of in operation of the Innisfil GO Rail is assessed and new technologies are considered. And obviously there's a need to make sure that both the rural and urban areas are serviced. Next slide, please. This next section, we'd just like to summarize the master plan process and studies completed that have helped guide the study. Next slide, please. Sorry, one more. So the TMP includes other supporting policies and strategies, including electric vehicle charging, to continue discussions within Power on electric vehicle charging installation in less dense settlement areas and encouraging installation of L2 chargers in new developments, to reinforce the good movement strategy and the importance of the Barrie Collingwood Railway for goods movement, and encouraging the use of most heavy truck traffic to county roads, and some first and last mile truck trips on town roads. Oh, apologies here. And in terms of travel demand management, the key elements are the MTO carpool lot and the promotion of its operation and use, and the introduction and operation of a online portal in coordination with other levels of government for residents and businesses. Some of the other policy developments have included support of other modes through Complete Streets, an update to the Complete Streets guidelines, and development of a pedestrian crossing policy, which supplements the Ontario Traffic Manual Book 15, which is the sort of the Bible, for lack of a better term, for pedestrian crossings. Next slide. I guess that is our update and recommendations, and we thank you for your attention. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Burke and Carolina, and Councillor Icey has had his hand up.
Thank you, Worship. A couple of questions. I guess I'll start with the first one. I saw something in there about a grade separation at the 20th Side Road and Innisfil Beach Road with regards to the rail crossing. Am I understanding that right? I know in the past we had been told that Metrolinx was not in favor of such a setup.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, and Carolina will correct me on the sort of the status of this, but yes, the intent in the previous transportation master plan that grade separation was identified. It is warranted based on sort of the road rail cross product, the level of exposure or interaction between vehicles and trains. It would normally be desired to be implemented at this stage under current levels, let alone the projected levels. It is just that Metrolinx is not supporting funding the grade separation. So it currently is in the plan. The town, I think, will have to sort of work with Metrolinx to implement it. And I think, maybe further discussions are necessary to maybe convince them that there should be some at least some cost sharing for the implementation.
So we're certainly hopeful that as Metrolinx continue on towards their electrification, towards their future, additional track on the Barrie line and increased service, that they'll see the utility of a grade separation there and hopefully come around to helping us to put that into place.
I guess follow up on that point. That is concerning to me that that there's been a change in plan when the construction at that intersection is desperately needed. I know the county came to us and had a suggestion on how they wanted to see it. A couple of years ago, they wanted to block northbound traffic, and as a town, we suggested that's not a great idea. And I haven't really heard after that, but is there a timeline where residents can expect some improvements there? Or are we just going to wait for Metrolinx again to change its mind on the plan, possibly?
No, I think I'll pass it off to Carolina, but I think this is a two-phase. There's a short-term and long-term solution to this intersection, Carolina?
Yes, that's correct. The county and the town have come to an agreement as to what that intersection should look like in the near term, and the county is doing that work as part of their 4-laning work on Innisfil Beach Road. Same work that happened this past year and the year before in front of Town Hall. They're going to gradually move their way east towards the intersection, so that should happen within the next year or two. But certainly, that intersection, Innisfil Beach Road and 20th, is one of our hotspots for collisions. As Ray said, it is also, if you look at the actual volumes of traffic and the number of trains, a grade separation would normally be warranted at that location because of the exposure between vehicles and trains. So we are still and have always been in favor of an eventual grade separation at that location at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you for the clarity on that. I just wanted to be clear that that project is in the works. My next question was with regards to agricultural vehicles, and I was glad that the presenter mentioned some possible improvements on east-west lines where agricultural equipment needs to travel. I looked at the report and it only really made one mention of agricultural vehicles. And on page 22, it says the group, I think it's a provincial policy, accommodate agricultural vehicles and equipment as appropriate. And I guess I had a question about the as appropriate nature. There's been a lot of concern in the agriculture community about as parts of the town get urbanized, that especially going north-south, the 20th Side Road is a good example, that some of our farm equipment has difficulty with some of the design. So I was wondering if you could maybe comment on that.
Do you want to go first, Ray, or?
Sure. Yes. Again, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. The greatest opportunity is if these roads remain rural, with rural cross section and a shoulder, that provides greater flexibility for roads that are widened to 4 lanes. There's an opportunity for passing, and passing is I think it's the greatest constraint, the ability to pass. So within the areas that are urbanized, we are seeing a number of roads that are being proposed to be widened to 4 lanes, which provides that flexibility and less stress for the agricultural vehicle driver. And I think that we are in a situation, certainly with 20th Side Road, and to have that the sort of the widened sections, and for the road sections that have been identified as having paved shoulders, as 9th line and 4th line, there are opportunities there for sort of passing with the assistance of the shoulder. I don't know, Carolina.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to what you said, Ray, is that any sort of the major works that we do, like a grade separation or a new bridge or a major widening, all have a second environmental assessment component. And sort of historically, that's where we've taken into account a lot of the agricultural needs in that particular area. So for example, the bridge over Highway 400 at 6th line, the major reason why that bridge now goes over the highway, as when the previous bridge went under the highway, was to be able to accommodate larger agricultural vehicles because the clearance of the old bridge was quite low. So it is something that, is not simply taken into account through the current study, but also through those secondary studies that are done for individual projects as well.
Just one last comment on that, if I may. Yeah, I appreciate those, and I, like I mentioned, the east-west corridors are fairly in a good spot for agricultural equipment. It's the transition phase. I know that's the challenge. On the 20th, we're going to start on the urban side, so we put curbs and everything up, and then we put a guardrail because increased traffic. But we haven't widened the road yet, and that takes another 2 years. And so in the meantime, there's a real challenge. And I do know of some accidents that have happened because of those situations. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to stage some of those parts of the road to when it is wide enough. I guess I would lean on some expertise on that, but I guess my ask would be that some of those things be considered. So, thank you.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, these points are quite good, and you did note that there maybe could be more covered off in the master plan, and we'll endeavor to look into that. The master plan is in draft now. So there may be, the master plan is guidance to individual environmental assessments. So we can incorporate that as a recommendation that future EAs explicitly take into consideration these needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And maybe we can ask Leah Ems or someone from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture to dive into the master plan as well, and maybe offer suggestions that they may have seen in other jurisdictions.
Certainly.
Other questions? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. Obviously just receiving this tonight, but looking at it, the fourth alternative seems to be the most complete plan for us. It really is great to see the Cookstown East-West link identified as a priority, as well as the county assuming the 6th line. I am curious, and obviously don't need it tonight necessarily, but the pavement reconstruction to improve capacity of the 14th line from Highway 27 to the west to mirror NewTek's master plan. When I looked at this, I assumed this was proposed ahead of the potential east-west link to Industrial Parkway and NewTek along the entire 14th. But what I saw tonight was there's just a loop proposed around Cookstown. So are we trying to, what are exactly we trying to match to our neighbors to the west to 27 on the 14th line by paving that area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is to Councillor. This is just simply an improvement. We recognize that with the efforts of New Tecumseh to upgrade their portion of the road, that it will draw more traffic to the short Innisfil section to King Street. And we just wanted to make sure that the the road could handle the additional volume for that stretch. It doesn't replace the need for the alternate route around Cookstown, and I think the overall east-west and the support for east-west demand with the province's recent announcements on 88, the Bradford bypass, that we need to have that east-west capacity and that the roads reflect the traffic levels that are anticipated.
Go ahead, Council.
Thank you. And again, thanks for the clarification. Again, I wasn't sure if that was part of the East-West link, but obviously that's a different matter. There is a small but vocal group that live in that area. I feel for them that once they do get it paved, they'll realize how much traffic is going to start coming back through there. So it's going to be as much as they've wanted that paved for a very long time. They're suddenly going to have a lot of traffic coming through there from New Tech. So it's unfortunate that they may get what they want and not like it. So thanks.
Absolutely. Be careful what you wish for, because whenever we do improve a road, within a day, we're getting speed complaints and traffic complaints. I think I saw Deputy Mayor Davidson next.
Thank you, Worship. I'm glad to see about the signalization at Big Bay Point Road and the 20th side road coming up in the near future. Was Friday Harbor not supposed to start a roundabout this past year at Big Bay Point and 13th line? Is that still on the plans, or when's it planned to be taken?
So that roundabout is currently still in design. I'm not entirely sure what their schedule is for construction, but it is in design right now.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
The signalization at the 20th and Big Bay Point Road, when does that look like that'll be coming along?
I'll leave that one to you, Ray. I'd have to look up the timing in the
My
very long report.
through you, Madam Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, I have to admit I don't have that handy. We can certainly get back to you shortly after the presentation.
It's a contentious corner. Last summer, during July and August, we had Saturdays and Sundays where there was between 2 and 4 accidents a day just at that intersection. So it won't be long before it's a fatality. So just like to know. Thanks.
I just also wonder, are we sure that that's our jurisdiction and not Barrie?
So my understanding is that the agreement that we have with Barrie is that they maintain the intermediate sections of roadway and we maintain the intersection.
Thank you. I think I saw Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have 2 questions. One is the road widenings for Innisfil Beach Road and the 6th line. You had mentioned that potentially wanting to go to 6 lanes. Are you proposing 6 lanes across the entire thing from 400 to the lake, or is it just to Yonge Street? And in that, if it's only to Yonge Street, Mike, the problems with associated property owners on either side would be limited in terms of impedance. But if you were going to continue beyond that, then there would be some serious issues, and I would not recommend that. So I just look for some clarification on that. And then I have a second point, but I'll ask that next. Thank you.
So again, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So the traffic volumes and the level of congestion is pretty, I mean, it's pretty consistent throughout the whole corridor. It is anticipated to be marginally above the capacity by 2051. And it really would fall to the next level of study, the Class EA, to balance the impacts with the operational needs. So definitely, you know, where there are constraints, it you know, that those benefits, those operational benefits, may not outweigh the impacts to adjacent properties. So I guess that's the first thing. And then secondly, those same studies would also have to sort of weigh the merits of the additional capacity with the sort of the implications for the land use planning, urban design of those streets. So I think all of those elements will be considered in the follow-up studies that are specifically to that corridor.
Thank you. My second question has to go with transit. The town had received quite a detailed proposal around fixed routes quite a while ago, which I thought for a resident to put together was quite detailed. But one of the recommendations I thought was prudent in his report around fixed links is that phasing. I think that we saw maybe 5 or 6 fixed links routes on that map. Is that phasing them in one at a time sometimes leads to failure because they rely on each other to work simultaneously. So I just wanted to make a comment that that we keep that in mind because I thought was one thing I was impressed by that report that the resident had submitted for I think he was talking about maybe four or five fixed links kind of coming in simultaneously. So it would just be nice to know that we're listening to our residents and that we're keeping that in mind. So just a more of a comment than anything else. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I know that was a comment, but I would have to echo your thought, your comments. That was one of the most comprehensive submissions from a member of the public that I've seen in 37 years. So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just touch on the one area that hasn't been discussed, and that was in the diagrams, the sidewalks, pathways for, public walking transportation. I believe there was one going along the 25th and 7th and coming from Ward 2 on to Ward 3. And as we're growing, as we have these completed communities and homes filling in, we need to provide, it is key, and residents will be so pleased to see this, and they'll be anxiously asking, when is this going to happen? Because we need to provide safe methods for residents to get to different areas, because walking on the side of a road in a bicycle path on a busy road is not safe. So I'm happy to see that included in this.
Thank you. Yeah, that is one issue with when you do transportation master plans or big picture studies like this, is managing people's expectations about, when all of this can be done. And so we will be receiving this. Councillor Waters?
Just one last question, if I may, Your Worship, is on the transportation map, there was on the running along the lakeshore was a red dash line, and from what I could read, I think it said in the legend Sharrow. So could I get an explanation of what that was? Thank you.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Sharrow is a, so there are different there's a sort of a hierarchy of on-road cycling facilities. It could be a buffered bicycle lane adjacent to the vehicle lane. It could be a bicycle lane adjacent to the vehicle lane. It could be a paved shoulder. When you don't have enough width to provide that level of separation for cyclists and vehicles, they have to share the space, but you want to identify the presence of cyclists so that drivers are aware and respectful. So sharrows are basically markings on the pavement that designate that the space is shared by vehicles and bicycles.
Thank you. No, because that's my cycling route, and so And it's always dangerous once you get onto the 25th. So I was just wanting to see what additional elements might be added to make that ride safer for cyclists. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more questions or comments? Carolina?
I just want to remind everybody that, we're not asking that council adopt or approve the plan tonight. We are planning to come back at the August 10th council meeting. So in the meantime, we encourage everybody, council, staff, members of the public, to check out the plan on our Get Involved page and to provide us with your thoughts and comments. So it is up on the Get Involved page right now, ready for people to take a look at. I'd also like to thank everybody who put in a great deal of hard work on this project. I'd like to thank our consultant team from Burnside. I'd like to thank members of our various committees that worked on this, both amongst staff and the School Zone Traffic Safety Committee. And I would particularly like to thank amongst staff, Paul Pentikainen from our Land Use Planning Department and Meredith Goodwin from Capital Engineering, both of whom did, the lion's share of work on this, and it would not be a successful project without them.
Thank you, Carolina. Always glad to see a flat organization where different expertise work together for a successful project. And thank you again for being with us tonight. And please, everyone, it is a bit of it's a little bit overwhelming, 167 pages, but I encourage you to, dive into what is your particular interest, and please provide us our comments. The more comments we get, the better the document will be. So thank you again. And could I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive this as information this evening? Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? That is carried. Thanks once again. Next, our next delegation is by Dr. Shell Geller, and it's regarding the short-term accommodation item that's on this evening. Dr. Geller, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. And good evening to you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, and councillors. I want to start off by thanking and expressing my appreciation to the following people: Ms. Patty Toma, Ms. Louise Grebosch, Mr. Mitchell Harris, Mr. Paul Pentikainen, and Mr. Leo Deloyd, who assisted me to better understand the latest version of the proposed STA bylaw. Could I have the next slide, please? I think everyone here would agree that we all want to eliminate the presence of ghost hotels and STA party houses in our town. So how do we achieve this much desired objective? Essentially, there are two approaches. First one is to implement an STA bylaw. The second is to enforce existing zoning bylaws without any STA bylaw. In their most recent report, town staff confirmed that current zoning and short community planning permit system bylaws, and I quote, prohibit the operation of ghost hotels in residential zones and the shoreline area. And I'm continuing from the report. Contravention may result in penalties of up to $25,000 for an individual and up to $50,000 for a corporation. End of quotes. These are great tools and meaningful penalties which can and should be applied whenever appropriate. Tonight, you are being asked to consider for approval a bylaw which would permit and license whole home STAs in shoreline and residential zones. These licensed STAs could then become ghost hotels in our town. The proposed bylaw contains some enforcement tools. In a moment, we'll take a closer look at how effective these tools might be. Could I have the next slide, please? I know that there is an argument in favor of an STA bylaw that goes something like this. Even a partially effective STA bylaw is better than no STA bylaw, because without the bylaw, we will have illegal underground STAs. This is a fallacious argument. With an STA bylaw, you will have created two types of SDAs. One, those which are licensed, and two, those SDAs which are unlicensed and illegal. An STA bylaw is an attempt to fix the problem by creating a bigger problem. The bylaw will result in more complaints, as there will be more SDAs, combining both legal and illegal ones, than present, because SDA landlords are unable, by and large, to screen their renters. I have my next slide. This proposed SDA bylaw sends the message that SDAs are welcomed in Innisfil. SDAs are big business, and entrepreneurs will flock to Innisfil. Next slide, please. So let's look at why the SDA bylaw is bad for Innisfil. Once an SDA license is granted, it becomes a non-conforming use and thus irrevocable, even if the legislation is reversed. Secondly, the responsible person protocol is ineffective. It is hard to conceptualize how a complaint that originates at 3 a.m. can be dealt with so as to enable neighbors to resume sleeping. Third, the demerit point system, another component of the SDA bylaw, will only be effective, if at all, over a protracted period of time, leaving neighbors having to cope with repeated incidents. Furthermore, since the SDA business is a very lucrative one, SDA owners will likely challenge and appeal attempts to limit their business operations. The use of town enforcement bylaw officers has the potential of placing them in harm's way when confronting a group of partying, intoxicated STA renters. The recent staff report acknowledged that the costs of the proposed STA program will exceed any revenues. Who's going to pay for this cost overrun? The bylaw would pit neighbor against neighbor, creating animosity. Mediation efforts mentioned in the staff report, will be ineffective, as STA owners will not be receptive to a neighbor's request to stop renting their cottage on Airbnb. STAs in our town will have an adverse effect on the cost of housing by one, increasing prices as STA entrepreneurs buy up properties to support their lucrative enterprise, and two, properties adjacent to STAs will become undesirable, resulting in owners who are unfortunate enough to find themselves near an STA to have lost 10% or more value of their property literally overnight. STAs on unserviced property may overtax the septic system and thus create pollution seepage. There is an absence of noise monitoring systems. The town of Blue Mountains has this requirement for part of their town where STAs are permitted. The attempt to limit one STA permit per individual is easily circumvented by using multiple different numbered corporations with different family members being their shareholders. The staff report referenced that Airbnb will be of assistance to enforce their policies. If my experience in reporting a complaint is representative, it became an exercise in frustration. When complaining, I was asked to provide a registration number, which of course I did not know, and then connected to someone whose English was so poor that we could not communicate. Could I have the next slide, please? Let's look at a more practical approach to better control the SDA problem. My first suggestion is to enhance existing bylaws prohibiting excessive noise and commercial use, for example, ghost hotels. In speaking with town staff yesterday, I was pleased to learn that some of this has already been done, and it would be up to town council to decide whether additional measures are still required. I realize that there may be some prosecutory challenges. However, I doubt that there will be any challenge when a town enforcement or a police officer sitting in their car can see or hear offending behavior which awoke a sleeping neighbor in the middle of the night. There are multiple examples in which municipalities have successfully prohibited ghost hotels in residential zones. Innisfil is proud of its long history of cottage rentals and being tourism friendly. This can be continued through existing one, B&B legislation requiring owners to be on site, and secondly, what I'll call non-conforming use. So for example, the Jones have been renting their cottage to the Smiths for 2 weeks every summer for the past 5 years. Where there is no complaint, there is no issue, and that can continue. My final suggestion is for the town to set up a hotline. STAs are a hot issue, and council is under pressure to do something about this growing problem. A hotline, accessible by both telephone and email, and widely promoted and advertised, has the following advantages. It provides residents with a tool to control noise and other disturbances, as town enforcement or police officers would be dispatched, advising the offending individuals, both owner and renter, that they could be subject to fines of up to $50,000. I'm quite certain that that would have a sobering effect upon them. Also, a hotline would be well received by the electorate, as it demonstrates council's concern and efforts to mitigate the STA problem. A hotline is a simple administrative process without complicated legislation or high costs. And finally, a hotline provides a way to monitor the type and location of problems. STAs are a commercial enterprise and do not belong in residential neighborhoods. The proposed STA legislation will legalize and thus encourage STAs in residential zones and will do little to solve the problem. For a 1-year trial period, why not try controlling ghost hotels and party STAs by strictly enforcing your very strong bylaws? When you vote on this proposed bylaw, please ask yourself, would you like to have an STA next to your home? Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Geller. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Geller? I have one, Dr. Geller, if you could. Can you, the multiple examples in which municipalities have successfully prohibited ghost hotels in residential zones, we would, if you could provide us with the ones that you're aware of, it would be great, because I've yet to find one.
Well, Collingwood is one. Blue Mountain, the town of Blue Mountains, has an area which is prohibited for STAs. So, and they were kind of in a problem because they had non-conforming use, so they had to sort of comply. And I think the zone where they permit STAs is the tourist area at the base of the mountain, the mountains or so. You know, the Globe and Mail had an article about 10 days or so ago about STAs, and the online version had 217 responses to that. And of those 217 responses, I think there were only 3 or 4 who were in favor of STAs, and that was right across Canada. So there, as you have said yourself, Your Worship, there is no perfect solution, but the better solution is not an STA bylaw, but to use your very strong existing bylaws to prohibit ghost hotels and party houses through STAs.
Thank you, Dr. Geller, and thank you for sending me a copy of that article and a copy of the comments. It's very much appreciated. And you know, I think we all agree on the problem, and we'll work to find a solution. We'll keep working to find a solution. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive Dr. Geller's present delegation? Councillor Payne, Councillor Waters, all those in favor? That is carried. Next is item 7. County Council, municipal associations, any committees that you serve for the betterment of the community? Councillor Orsatti, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to announce that Innisfil Beach Park Ad Hoc Committee will have its term closing with the launch of Sierra's Chair, which is a beach accessible wheelchair. And that event is happening this Saturday at Innisfil Beach Park. And I want to thank all the dedicated residents who sat on this board to find the solutions to community concerns and ways to improve the user experience at the park, and also to our staff team who provided all the work behind the scenes. And it's a nice way to end that committee's term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to mention some good news with the Conservation Authority, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, is that the environmental education with the new Conservation Authority Act has been under attack from the province in terms of they don't want conservation authorities involved in environmental education unless they can find some other way to fund it. And Lake Simcoe had recently proposed building a new outdoor education center, which was going to be in jeopardy because of the difficulty in terms of how do you fund something like that. Well, I'd like to tell everyone that the federal government has come to the rescue and has given the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority $4.1 million for their new environmental education center. So I'm really happy about that. And hopefully the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority will continue its great efforts around educating young people and also families and adults around the importance of sustainability and maintaining high quality lake water. So I just thought that was good news. I thought I would mention it.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. So under the new changes in the Conservation Authorities Act, that would be a Category 3, which can still happen, but it just requires a memorandum of understanding between a municipality that wants that service and the Conservation Authority. And I understand you're missing a very important event this evening. The Lake Simcoe Foundation annual fundraising event is happening tonight, and I'm sorry that you couldn't be there, that we all couldn't be there, because we always do support it. Innisfil supports that event. In fact, we always usually arrange our council schedule so that we have that night off, because it's always a Wednesday night. But unfortunately with COVID, it got moved to a Wednesday night that we are scheduled to meet.
Thank you for mentioning that. You're right. I was planning on going to it, but the importance of STAs was just a debate I could not miss and give up. So I've declined to go to the dinner tonight. But I thank you for raising that awareness in terms of that was tonight, and it's a great evening, and it raises a lot of money for the Conservation Authority, and much of that dollars goes to environmental education. So unfortunately I'm not there tonight, but I think the debate around STAs is well worth me sticking around here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members? Seeing none, we'll go to the consent list. So for those that are watching, the consent list is full of all of the staff reports and recommendations for tonight's meeting. If there's no comment or it's not pulled, that means that the recommendation that is printed in the staff report will be approved at the end of the meeting, and any one that we want further discussion on, we'll pull and we'll resolve into committee of the whole, where we can have much more fulsome debate on those topics. So we'll start with the special council meeting minutes from June the 8th. A2, the council meeting minutes dated June the 8th. B1, the summary report from the Innisfil Beach Ad Hoc Committee meeting. B2, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. And B3, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting from June the 16th. And as Councillor Orsatti said, all of our special committees, those that council chose, like the school zone and traffic safety and the Innisfil Beach Park, and those that are legislated, like the accessibility committee, all those committees are winding up as we inch towards the end of this term of council. And I just want to also add my thanks for the many, many, many volunteers from our community who put so much time and effort into all of these committees. And we've had the opportunity, most of them, to meet for the last time in June and offer finally in person our thanks to these people for all of their hard work, and encourage any members of the community who'd like to get involved further with their town to watch for advertisements after the new council is put in place, and they'll be able to apply to be involved in any of these committees that might interest them. So thank you to all of you. C1, the short-term accommodation bylaw. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
I'd like to pull it, please.
Thank you. C2, the fire consolidation implementation. Could somebody pull that one, please? Councillor Van Berkel, thank you. C3, the Alsami servicing allocation lift hold provision. C4, the proposed amendments to delegate authority bylaw 4518. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
I'd like to pull it, please.
Thank you. C5, the housekeeping bylaw amendments. Glad we don't have to read that resolution. C6, the enhancing community events. C7, the Hordinsky Community Kitchen enhancements. C8, the notice of objection to the heritage registration listing. Councillor Orsatti, pull it for committee of the whole.
I do have questions, so I think if we could pull that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. C9, the backflow prevention bylaw. I just want to thank Tracy Morden from In-Services for all of her hard work going through on updating all of these policies and bylaws. C10, 1357 Bel Air Beach Road official plan amendment. Can somebody pull that one, please? Councillor Fowler. And C11. Uh-oh, maybe I've got the wrong one. So C11 is the 1303 Bel Air Beach Road official plan amendment. Okay, then we go to the staff reports for information. D1, resurfacing a portion of Killarney Beach Road. D2, the staff report on the 7th line reconstruction award. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I don't need to pull it. I just wanted to comment that it's good to see that project moving along. I know there's been a few delays, and I'm sure the residents on that street will be happy to hear of some progress.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I was also going to comment on that because it seems to be a hot topic on social media as well. And I know Hydro's been in there, InPower's been in there working for weeks and weeks and weeks to do some relocations. So glad to see we're at the point of tender. So just for those who are watching and might be interested, it looks like construction from this summer until next fall. D3, the draft release or the Orbit Sustainability Development Plan and Checklist. I think, Mr. Keane, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dolan. not to go into the detail of that awfully large CMP tonight, but I did want to briefly introduce and provide some additional context for this information report only, just to help with the busy agenda tonight. As mentioned, this is for information only, and the draft sustainability checklist is only for Orbit. And that's to reflect, obviously, the sustainability principles that Council has adopted through that Orbit visioning and thorough consideration processes. As we know, Orbit is quite unique, and it has its own density approvals, and it has its own vision, and that vision was based on it being a more sustainable development. So that being said, this isn't a town-wide standard. I just want to make that clear for everyone, but it is reflective of the town's direction as we start to implement sustainability, through things like our sustainability master plan process and also our existing official plan policies. This represents a logical next step. The checklist has been drafted in a manner that seeks to apply existing third-party certifications that most closely align with the Orbit sustainability principles. So when I say third-party certifications, I mean, adopting a standard or certification process that's already out there, so we're not reinventing the wheel. In this case, it's a combination of 3 of those that we think best reflect, those directions that Council has given us. Some of these standards are for individual buildings, and some are more holistic that look at a neighborhood level, like phases of Orbit, for example, and Lead Neighborhood is one of those that meets that criteria, but there are others out there. And then we would apply and look at applying, more individual green standards from the City of Toronto to the individual buildings moving forward. The idea of flexibility has been key from day one, and that's a primary consideration of how sustainability can underpin the Orbit vision. We still have to be cognizant of the economic needs, of developers, and the market needs to continue with attainable and affordable housing these days. And, that balance of affordable construction costs with, the concept of reduced life cycle costs for owners after that is a key goal of these guidelines that we're going to start the discussion of between now and August 10th. The draft also reflects, the need to objectively measure the success of the sustainability targets. Third-party certification, does involve an extra step, yes, but, we feel that is important and consistent with the direction we've been given, that, a review process, that can be certified and, prove that we're meeting our sustainability targets while lessening the burden, on the developer and staff by using an existing system is worth pursuing, and that's what's being proposed as well. The other piece too, since writing this report, is that there has been, we did have an initial meeting with the subcommittee of the Development Liaison Group. We heard from that group earlier this week that, there is commitments to sustainability as well as concerns related to the draft that's before Council tonight. And there's 4 primary concerns or themes of concerns that I can briefly summarize now. The first is, the LEED certification process in general. It is a very well-known process, but, it also, is considered to have in some cases an administrative burden, depending on which pieces you're using, that could add to additional cost, and, in some cases is overly prescriptive with the specification. So, there's a feeling that the targets are okay for sustainability, but, using LEED specifically may be too onerous. The second point and second theme was that there's a collective desire for further flexibility that provides for greater options for alternatives. There is a desire to have broader targets for, individual builders to then interpret and achieve those targets as they think fits best for their proposed development. The third theme is just sustainability can be achievable, but it shouldn't be onerous. And, that theme is woven into the previous 2 comments I mentioned as well. And then finally, and very topical these days, is that there needs to be equilibrium in the market, and the sustainability construction costs, shouldn't reduce homeowner affordability. We haven't had that discussion yet regarding, that affordability piece versus the reduced life cycle cost, but that's certainly part of that conversation. People are already being priced out of the market, and obviously affordability is key, and any layer of, potential approvals of certification could be seen to impacting construction costs and therefore impacting housing supply. So that's it in a nutshell. This preparation of the draft hasn't been done in isolation. The above comments, reflect the first of many that we're likely to receive. And all these comments will be consolidated and considered as part of that staff recommendation report, right now, tentatively scheduled for August 10th. And while, the LEED ND approach and other complementary standards attempt to address the comments to date, staff is, as always, happy to discuss and explore further prior to that recommendation report. So thank you, Council, and for allowing me to give that context.
Thank you for providing it, and thanks for highlighting that for us. Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to pull it because I think it's a good step forward for the town in terms of having some sort of, I guess, vision in terms of how the orbit can be sustainable. I did talk to staff about some of my issues and concerns that they do have with it, but I'll just mention those out loud for everyone else to hear them. The one that LEED is onerous. There are literally thousands of buildings that have gone through this, either LEED for neighborhood or LEED for building and design, and it gets done. The issue here is I don't think Cortel Group has done a LEED building before. So yes, it's going to be a little more onerous, but I think if we don't if they don't do LEED, then we come up with some sort of I don't know how you'd make it a third party if you're not using a standardized system. So I think we should stick with LEED and LEED for neighborhoods. I read what they wanted to do. It's not a building, but it's the neighborhood component. My concern with it was that they're going to be able to choose one building out of all the buildings that they're going to go through the process, and they can choose it at any point during the process in terms of it could be their last building. So they don't get informed. So it should be the first building that they do and learn from it. So that informs all the other buildings that go along with it. So I want to make sure that that happens. So I think it's a step forward. LEED isn't the best one out there, because it's more of a checkbox system as opposed to hard targets. But I do like the fact that they're using some of the City of Toronto formats around green buildings, green standards, I should say. So it's kudos to staff for getting this together. I think we just need to stick to our guns and ask that if we're going to have any real measure of sustainability in the core of the orbit, this is the basic amount that needs to be done. And I think Cortel can learn a lot from this process by starting, with their first LEED building. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other hands, we'll carry on and we'll go to bylaws. So there are 2 bylaws this evening. This one is in regards with fireworks. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I don't need to pull it. I just wanted to just recognize that this has been a kind of a year's worth of discussion, and I'm hoping that this will be followed in the community. And I also wondered if staff was going to do some communication regarding the change as we are coming up to the July long weekend.
Thank you. I'm sure we've got people from communications on here. Oh, there's Mr. Harris. Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Through your worship to Councillor Ices, yes, we are planning on doing should this bylaw pass tonight, doing a communication split through our social media and updating our website as well.
Terrific.
Thank you. And then finally, the fees and charges bylaw, item E2. Seeing none, we'll go to F, items correspondence for action. F1, the District of Muskoka, letter regarding annual exercise exemption. And item F2, the Town of Aurora's Cures Law. Councillor Setti.
I don't need to pull that. I just wanted to make a comment, Your Worship, that I applaud the Town of Aurora for this resolution and the Town of Innisfil for getting on board, because endorsing this is about the domestic violence, and currently in the Canadian court systems, the judges do not understand the consequences of domestic violence and repeat offenders. And what happens is when they just give someone a slap on the wrist and a woman goes home to a domestic violence situation and their spouse comes back home, repeat offenders are just slapped on the wrist with another fine and sent out. So this Cures Law is about educating the court system and our judges, and I think it's time, and it's a great thing, and I'm so happy to see Town of Innisfil endorsing and getting on as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next, our correspondence for information. So we've got 6 of them there. I won't go through them all. I'll just ask if anybody wants to pull any. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
I'd like to pull G2, please.
Thank you. And now I just wanted to point out that we did raise a flag for St. John's Ambulance Week this week as well. And yeah, and so we'll go to our next item, which is the consent list recommendation. And those are the items that we're going to pull. Does that agree with everyone's list? So may I have a mover and a seconder, please? I'll go with Councillor Waters and Councillor Fowler to move and second the consent list recommendation. All those in favor? That is carried. And a resolution to resolve into committee of the whole, please. That would be moved by Councillor Payne and seconded by Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? That is carried. So we'll go to the first item that was pulled, and that was C1, and it was the short-term accommodation, and it was moved. It's pulled by Councillor Dan Davidson. But before we get started, we've got Director Deloitte who'd like to make a few comments.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council and the community. We've done considerable work and had considerable community engagement on the short-term accommodations file. This is actually a global issue. It actually started in Europe, Barcelona, Amsterdam years ago, and it's now hitting the shores of Innisfil. So, and we're putting our judgment to it. We reported to this council in April and recommended that our enforcement toolkit be augmented with some changes to zoning bylaw and introducing a licensing bylaw. And there was some concerns around that. So what we've done is we prepared a report that outlines 4 options. And we don't make a habit of this ever, but there's quite a bit of input that we've received. And we are suggesting of the 4 options, the first 2 options, one being an enhanced version of the one you saw in April, putting zoning and licensing in place. Another one is a more scoped option, as you can see, as option 2. We think those are more feasible, and then and the other options, which range from do nothing to that kind of thing. The second option affects shoreline areas only. So anyhow, those 2 options are right. There's a few other options there. So what we're doing is we're presenting those tonight. We have received tremendous input from people, court cases, all kinds of things. And I can assure this council and the community and those that submitted the comments, we've reviewed all of those cases. We've reviewed all of the material that's come in. There's been quite a bit. And so that's pretty much where we're at right now. So I just want to thank staff and the community for all their hard work on this and their input. And so that is, we're happy to answer any questions and ready to engage in this discussion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse there for a moment. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just need a seconder for this to move forward. I got Councillor Waters. Thank you. Okay, as you know, we've all been bombarded with this and lobbied from one end to the other. I have a hard time for us to debate this tonight when really it's the next council that's going to have to live with our decision. If we do even pass any decision, option A or B, nothing can be done till the end of November, really, of 2022. And it's the new council that's going to have to deal with the fallout of our decision tonight. So I don't know if we really should debate this or just defer it until later in time. But I do know it's contentious, and I do know that I'm looking at item D here is options and alternatives. We do have municipal bylaws in place, and I understand that we can even be tougher with some of the existing bylaws under the Municipal Act. Now, I may have got the number wrong in the Municipal Act, section 440, that if we have these ghost hotels, and they seem to be our problem, just the ghost hotels right now, we can go for an injunction, immediate injunction against these ghost hotels and have them shut down immediately. If they operate after that, we can start with fines of 25,000 and going up. And I think you've spoken quite clearly. Our big problem here is these ghost hotels owned by numbered companies. I do know that one of the groups of these ghost hotels are sold to different individuals in that person's family. So each of those ghost hotels are owned by a different corporation. And if they're building a new one, that would be, I'm sure, on another family member's thing. What I don't understand is how the real estate board can allow a real estate agent to buy these properties under hidden names. And when it's supposed to be, did they do a good job of really getting fair market price for that property from the owners that did own them? But that's another argument in itself. There isn't a municipality that has come up, I think you've said it very clear, Your Worship, that has come up with a successful solution to any of these. We've looked at Kawartha, at Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Mississauga. The City of Toronto is doing their best by using existing bylaws that are in place. So my suggestion, I'm going to leave it to council, but I think adopt amendments to the zoning bylaw, but not the licensing bylaw at this time, so that we really don't burden future council. I'll leave it at that. I'd like to listen to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Verbosch, can I ask you about injunctions, 440 injunctions?
I'm Mary Dolan. Yeah, I provided advice to council already on the section 440 injunctions and the vulnerabilities there. So in my opinion, the weaknesses in the zoning bylaw make the section 440 injunctions difficult. But earlier today, council might be aware that the town of Oro-Medonte heard this issue at council. And Deputy Mayor, I don't know if you were referencing 440 or 447.1, which is an entirely different section of the Municipal Act. Oro-Medonte is moving with applications under that section for public nuisance. And those applications are not anticipated to be heard in court until 2023, according to the CAO's delegation to Council of Oro-Medonte today. So I don't have any further comments on section 440, but the section 447.1 of the Municipal Act application to the court where premises constitute a public nuisance. It might be interesting for council to see the result of that, but we don't know what kind of evidence was provided in support of those applications. We don't know the context of those applications, and then we can't predict what the outcome would be. So yeah, the advice I've previously given on section 440 remains the same, and I have no advice to give tonight on section 447.
Thank you. Ms. Verbosch, can I also ask you then, totally hypothetically, so if we laid charges under the zoning bylaw, what would the timeline be before anything? And I know it's an unfair question because it's speculative, but if you could just kind of give us an idea of, like, we have charges laid against a home right now, and it's, how long has it been? Have we been waiting?
Well, as a result of COVID, there are some backlogs in the provincial offenses court. And I know that of the charges that we currently have on various matters, what we're hearing from our prosecutor is that courts are not setting trial dates at this time. So everything, all the matters that we have are currently to be spoken to and put over to another date. So we haven't received a trail date in quite some time now, and I can't predict when that backlog might open up.
Thank you. And I saw, Mr. Harris, did you want to add something?
Through your worship, no, I was just going to jump in and help Louise there, but yeah, that's correct. It's hard to know how long that court process would take at this time.
Okay, so procedurally, well, I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussion, but Deputy Mayor, you had a revised recommendation. If you could work with the clerk's office to have that identified on the screen, that would be.
Okay, Your Worship. I actually like what Louise brought up, that Oro Medonte is looking at this injunction possibly is creating a disturbance, and that sort of takes effect immediately, so we wouldn't have to wait for a court date to shut down the operation. If I understand that's how it works, maybe I'm wrong. I had a lot of information coming at me this weekend. But Louise, that if we put an injunction against the said ghost hotel, they have to cease and desist immediately, and then it goes to court. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But if Oro Medonte is doing this and they expect something in the fall, or is it 2023? Is it not smart to see how they succeed in shutting down these ghost hotels, and then letting next council learn from what they've done? Can you clarify the injunction process and how it works if we were to implement using our existing bylaws that we have in place?
Mr. Bosch?
I don't know if I can confirm on the spot how immediate the injunction works. I know that previously we sought an injunction on another matter about 3 years ago, and it did require an attendance before a judge to get that injunction order granted. But again, that's just speaking from experience from 3 years ago. I would have to clarify that. And then on the 447, as I mentioned, that really only came up because I was watching the Oro Medonte Council today. So I can't provide a legal opinion on the availability of that, but in review of the case law under that section, it appears to be used scarcely. The leading case, I believe, is out of Kenora, and in that case, it was used to shut down a boarding house that was viewed as the center of criminal operations in the town. So what the type or the level of evidence that the town would need in order to successfully proceed under 447, I'm not sure. I am interested to see what the circumstances were in Oro Medonte and how successful they are, but who knows whether they'll even proceed to court. As far as I know, the applications are proceeding, but things settle without going to trial. So I think it's speculative at this point to rely on that outcome. But with respect to the last question that you asked about whether or not it's smart to wait for that, I believe that's a question for council. We don't have a lot of information with respect to how the court's going to decide on that, and we may never have a decision on that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your input. I do that. Thank you. Let's hear the debate, and if council staff clerk's office can work on rewording of this recommendation, and my recommendation is to go with other options, alternative D. So if they can work with that, that would be great. That would be on page 9 of 11 in the document. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Orsatti?
I guess I'm just a little confused on what the deputies asking for, so just clarification while the clerks are writing that. Deputy Davidson, are you saying that you are wanting staff to work with our current bylaws now, and this all be deferred to the next term of council? I wasn't clear on
what your worship. Yes, if you look at the report on section page 9 of 11 under other options and alternatives, It's not recommended by staff, but council may consider the following options, and that is adopt amendments to the zoning bylaw so it makes it more strict. So we can use the existing bylaws to tone things down where we need to, but not the licensing bylaw at this time, because I don't want to burden future council. Let me just go back. In that same area, staff recognizes the historical cottage rental community in Innisfil and suggests a further amendment to the zoning bylaw amendments, CPPBS, and bylaw amendments to include within the definition of short-term accommodation. Further, the proposed amendments would include refinements to the definition of bed and breakfast, which excludes short-term accommodations, and maintain the requirement that the owner reside on the premises. This is intended to reinforce that commercial ghost hotel type STAs are not permitted. It's right in the report, right there. STAs, ghost hotels, are not permitted. And that's what I'd like to really focus on.
Okay, so just clarification, because in that same section, it says staff do not recommend this option given that existing prosecutorial challenges discussed above persist. I just have a question then, if I could, Your Worship. Dr. Geller had, and this would be for staff, well, if I can ask other questions while staff are preparing Deputy Mayor Davidson's thing. Thank you for that liberty. Dr. Geller had mentioned about having a hotline, and police would be able to attend. And I just want to ask staff, what can South Simcoe Police respond to? Would they be dispatched to a noise at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning to handle that? Or is that seen more as a bylaw? And speaking of the fines, it's 25 to 50,000 go to court, which keeps mentioning that is backlogged in the courts. So I just want a little bit more information on the hotline and how would that be handled?
Thank you, Councillor. I'll get Mr. Harris to answer that, but really, we do have a hotline. So we've got our bylaw that you can call the town any time of day or night, and then you can press 5, and it will go directly. You can leave a message that will go directly to the bylaw officer. So that is a hotline, and we have bylaw officers working on the weekend now till 2 in the morning. So I think we need to perhaps have a maybe communicate the hotline better, but we currently do have a hotline. But I'll have Mr. Harris comment on enforcement. And Deputy, could I ask you to mute? I'm getting a bit of feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through Your Worship, to Councillor Asadi. Yes, currently we do have a line where residents can contact us. It's active 24 hours. We do have staff on now in the summer, starting Victoria Day weekend on Fridays, Saturdays, and holidays. So we have been monitoring that line. We have not had any calls after 11 p.m. to our after hours number at this time. We have been proactively patrolling certain areas of the town while we're on shift. But yes, I would echo Mayor Dolan's comments about perhaps communicating that we are on and we are responding to complaints at that hour for noise.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Mayor. I'm going to support the Deputy Mayor on this one. No matter how I look at this, is that if we license, we're allowing commercial operators into residential zones, whether it's the lakefront or whether it's the rest of the property. We have the bed and breakfast bylaw, which states that that ghost hotels are not allowed. So I think if we strengthen that piece around ghost hotels, and at least try taking one of these operators to work, because I think that it would send a huge message. Plus, we also want to wait and see what happens in Roma-Dante. So I don't want to move ahead with any type of licensing, because I think we're just saying that's okay, and I don't think it is okay to have commercial operations in these residential zones. Two is that something that's been brought up time and time again is around affordable housing, as the houses are being bought up and then rented out, and these are taking houses off the market for people to be able to afford. And less houses on the market means higher prices. So it makes it more and more difficult for people to get into the market because those options are disappearing quickly because other people can afford to buy them because they're renting them out. The third one, the reason I want to mention it is I did have a nice conversation. I got a long email from a resident down in Lefroy, and something that was brought up that didn't dawn on me before, but it's fearful of what might happen. Is that she was saying that her friends are now living beside ghost hotels on the lakefront. And it is absolutely ruining their experience as a cottage. That's what it was designed for. It's absolutely ruining that opportunity for them, to the point that they're thinking of selling now. That she also mentioned that there are new buildings going up on the lakefront, which are strictly going to be Airbnbs. And so what I could see happening over time, since you can make huge profits, is that slowly we're going to lose what we call our historical cottage country appeal and feel to, where I could see a lot of the lakefront properties being owned as ghost hotels, as commercial entities, for profit. And we just fought Lakelands last year, where we were trying to change the zoning to mixed use. And we had a huge battle because, there were a few residents who didn't want to lose their lifetime cottage homes. Well, that may happen anyways, because we're going to allow, through licensing, ghost hotels all along the lakefront. I don't think in 20 years we'll recognize the lakefront that we currently have as a family-friendly place that cottagers can own. So it was just something that was brought up to me today, and I just thought, you know what, you're so right. We don't know what's going to happen, and I think by licensing, we are giving the okay that that whole home rentals, ghost hotels are okay in Innisfil, and I don't think they are. So I believe it's probably prudent to wait, strengthen our existing bylaws that we currently have, allow a court case go. Yes, it's going to take a long time, but let's get one in the system, or we already have one in the system. Let's see what happens at Oro-Medonte. I just can't agree with allowing commercial operations in residential zones, and then they're only paying residential taxes on top of that. We're losing all around. So that's just my comments, and I support the deputy mayor on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I'm going to go to you, Councillor Nicol. I'm sorry I skipped over you, but I just want to try to scope the conversation for tonight, because I think we all agree. Like we've all got the calls. We all know about the noise. We know about the garbage. We know about the overused septic systems. We know about the issues with water safety. We know about all the issues, and we all agree that we do not want ghost hotels or party houses in Innisfil anywhere. Is there anyone who doesn't agree with that statement? So we all know what we want, and now what we need is that tool to make that happen. And where we're not in agreement, and where we haven't been able to land, and neither has anyone else, is what is the best tool to make this happen? Staff are telling us the best tool is a license, not to enable, but to control. Because if you give somebody a license, you can take it away. But I understand that the perception of that is then it's enabling. What we need a scalpel. And what we have is a sledgehammer, a blunt instrument, and we haven't got an instrument, and we have to keep looking for the best instrument to get us to where we all want to be, because the issue is, with the dozens and dozens of calls I get, as I keep hearing about what the issues are, but very rarely what a solution is. And when I do call other municipalities, now I haven't called Collingwood, and I will tomorrow, but when I do call municipalities that I've been told have got it worked out, they're telling me all the issues. So Town of the Blue Mountains Yes, they have an area where you can have a licensed STA within a certain zone. But that doesn't mean they don't have dozens and dozens in the other zone where they're not allowed. So that's a problem there too. Same problem as we're in right now. And they don't have a tool to make them go away either. So Seguin Township was another one, called and had a meeting with the CAO at Seguin Township. And they also, they did take one or two of the party houses, and it was appealed, and they ended up settling with minutes of settlement just because of the deep pockets and the expense to drag that out in court. So yeah, so I'm not saying licensing is the best option. I'm just trying to say let's focus on, we all know the problem, and what's the best tool we have in our toolbox at this time. And one of the amendments I'd like to ask to make is when we submit the letter to the province endorsing harmonizing provincial-wide collection of municipal accommodation tax, I would also like to add to that the province create tools to help with the enforcement of ghost hotels or party houses, because I believe regulation by the province is perhaps a step forward, or at least a tool, because it's a problem everywhere, but it's a different problem everywhere. In some places it's around ski hills, in some places it's around parks. In our case, it's, well, not solely, but a lot of it is on the waterfront. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I think we've all been dealing with this for quite a while. I think we as council have all agreed that we need to get a handle on these. And I think the staff have done a great job providing a comprehensive bylaw, which does target the use of the land and not who uses it. I am truly surprised by the suggestion that we should defer this item, especially from some of those who've already said that we need to get control of this. This council has an opportunity to show their intestinal fortitude and to do our job rather than deferring this back to the next council, which will likely have at least 5 or 6 brand new council members. If the intent was not to burden that future council with this bylaw, but a revised or deferred motion, that would put even further burden on these new councillors. I truly and fully support option 1 and would request a recorded vote for whatever comes of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. There's a comment you made earlier that I want to address, and it's something that I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head in one respect, but I think we need to clarify. You said we don't have a scalpel, we have a hammer. Well, we don't have a hammer, we have a scalpel. We're looking for that. There's a thing called death by 1,000 cuts. I'm sorry. That when we have the neighborhood mediation, I'm sorry, the people are not responding already to the care of the surrounding homes. We're talking about platform engagement, where if you pull off Airbnb, they're willing to take it off, and then we say we've added section 1410. Just so everyone's aware, a court may, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, infer that a listing on a platform or a public advertisement to that effect, and by any means is proof that the premise is being rented or offered for rent as a short-term accommodation. I looked up infer just to get the exact thing. Deduce or conclude from evidence and reasoning rather than explicit statements. So basically, at that point, we want to send it again to a higher level, not handle it ourselves, is to hand it off to somebody else, where there's going to be a massive delay. There's so many things. The right of entry, I fully understand why section 15 was put in and how we're trying to control it before it becomes a problem, but a right of entry at 3 a.m. is not going to work. It's not going to assist our bylaw officers. What I personally believe is we have the tools in place, and we as council, to quote Councillor Nicol, use our intestinal fortitude and back them 100%. Show them that when they go there and someone comes to them and says, well, they're being unfair or they're being unreasonable or whatever the case may be, we say we trust their judgment. We have placed them in a position to fine you for the law, for the vehicles, fine you for the noise, fine you for the pets, fine you for whatever it is. A death by 1,000 cuts If $1,000 fine won't hurt you, 5 of them will for 5 different things. Show people that no matter what happens, if you're not going to come here and respect Innisfil, we will not accept your behavior and you will follow the rules that every other tax-paying resident has. We do have the bylaws. We need them supported. We need them to be utilized. And to do that, in my opinion, I think we as a council need to back bylaw and tell them that no matter what happens, we will support your judgment on this. We're talking, even in the report, there was 33 in 2020, 33 complaints. There's 24. That's 6 to 8 a week in a 4-month period. I don't see party houses being used in the middle of November, not sometime in February. It's when the weather's good, the lake is warm, people want to come up and let loose. It's this 4-month period that is the biggest problem we have. And if we have the rules in place and we don't have to burden anybody else with excess paperwork, excess legislation, excess anything, hit them hard. Make one an example. Make one party house an example, and you'll see everyone go, whoa, if that's going to happen to me, maybe I got to get my in line too. So I'm backing the deputy mayor here. Let's just use the tools we have. Let's put this on the table, show everybody that we already have the rules, the regulations in place, and we will use every last one to make sure that you respect the people around you. If you don't, you are not welcome in Innisfil. Thank you.
Thank you. But I just want to clarify. So Councillor Fowler, you say you want to back the staff?
In one,
and the staff are suggesting this. This report is written by bylaw, fire, legal, and planning.
I understand what you're saying, Your Worship. My point is that we have the rules without creating excess documentation, without creating excess work, without creating excess process. We have the rules. Why don't we just simply enforce them? And then when someone comes at our bylaw officers and says, we disagree with, well, I'm sorry. We trust their judgment in this scenario. Make somebody an example that is going around and making everybody else's life difficult. And then when that happens, the others will take notice. It's that simple. We have the rules in place. As much as I appreciate the work that's being put into this, when it comes down to it, it's like I said in the last time this came up, it has no teeth. Mediation, we're going to give demerit points. We're going to give it away to a court who's going to be, a year down the road. And in that time, what are they going to do? They're not going to stop. You hit them with $1,000 fine for their cars, $1,000 fine for their dock, $1,000 fine for noise. You hit them 3 times just like that. That's one night. Boom, done. They'll pause because that $2,000 they made, they're now $1,000 behind.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask both legal and bylaw. Is that doable? Is it that easy? Can we simply use the tools we already have? Because I thought we were told the other night about the prosecutorial issues. I'm asking Ms. Verbosch and Mr. Harris, is that scenario doable? The reason I want to bring this in, not because I want to be argumentative, Councillor, it's because I don't want to give false hope that, if we just, hit them harder, it's all going to go away. Because I'll let staff talk.
Through your worship, thank you. I can start. Louise might want to jump in. So we are recommending, either option 1 or 2 for the licensing to give us the extra tools for bylaw for enforcement. We still do have our current bylaws and we will continue to utilize them. But as noted in the report and at closed session, there is some challenges which we outline and our prosecution staff outline. And also we have seen other municipalities with the licensing program have some benefit with getting convictions on licensing charges.
Thank you. Anything to add, Louise?
For you, Mayor Dolan. Mitch is right. We do have some additional tools under the noise bylaw that was introduced in November, and Mitch's extended hours of operation. But to date, those haven't, I mean, the noise bylaw amendment was brought into effect in November, and to date, he hasn't had a call where that's had to be used. It's being investigated in one case. What we're recommending is that the licensing bylaw gives enforcement additional tools that they can use over and above the existing bylaw tools. And I think that that's recognized across the board. A lot of municipalities that introduce licensing bylaws, it's for that very purpose, because it does provide additional enforcement tools, such as the demerit points, the ability to pull a license that creates an offense for operating without a license. And with respect to Councillor Fowler's comment on the inference, unfortunately, I disagree. I do believe that that recommended addition to the licensing bylaw is actually a very strong and cogent addition to the licensing bylaw. It was recommended to us by our prosecutor. It's been implemented in the licensing bylaw in Niagara Falls and one other municipality. And it helps us get over the hurdle that exists in both the zoning bylaw and the CPPS bylaw, where proof of operation is hard to come by. So what happens with that section is that by advertising, operation is deemed, so we can lay the charge for operation and advertising where they've simply advertised. And at that point, the owner has to prove that they are not operating an STA. So I guess in summary, what I'm saying is I agree with Mr. Harris that we do have existing tools and additional tools under noise, some tools under parking, some tools under clean communities. But what we're advocating for is the licensing bylaw, just because it gives us those additional tools that would strengthen our enforcement against short-term rental ghost hotels that is currently problematic in the zoning bylaw.
I just want to add one more thing and I'll go to you, Deputy. So in Innisfil, if you have a car dealership, you don't need a license. If you're a plumber, you don't need a town license. If you're a strip club, you need a license in Innisfil. And that's not because we want a whole bunch of strip clubs. It's because it's considered a nuisance. And so our only way to control that nuisance is to have that license that can be revoked. So there's very few businesses in Innisfil that require a license, and every one of them is considered a nuisance, like a body rub parlor and things like that. Those are licensed. But that doesn't mean that there's 100 body rub parlors in Innisfil because we allow them. It means it's a way of controlling them. I'll go to the deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I think Councillor Fowler said it, and every councillor said it, and every constituent who pays taxes has said it. The issue is noise at the ghost hotels. We have a bylaw for noise. These are illegal. It says right here, they are not permitted under the existing bylaws. Therefore, if there's a noise bylaw infraction, then go after them full tilt. If you've got to be there 3 nights of the week, do it 3 nights of the week. Also, my other question, I need this one. I do like the mayor's addition with the province to give us more power to deal with it under the current circumstances. I think I've been talking with the province as well, just trying to get something done. They didn't want to increase fines before the election. Elections are over, they have a majority. Now's the time to increase fines for municipalities that are allowed. My next question would go to finance. I have a commercial property. The exact frontage of my place, if it was residential, would be about $4,000 a year. I pay 3 times that. If these waterfronts are paying $10,000 to $15,000 a year, then I want them paying 3 to 4 times more for taxes. And if they've been operating a guest hotel for the last 2 or 3 years, you know what? They owe the town about $50,000 a year in minimum in taxes for each year they've been running it. Have we even gone after that? But if I started paying this town what I think it's worth as residential, operate my restaurant as residential, run it illegally, it's okay. Because these places have not paid commercial taxes or probably not commercial insurance on their properties like I have to. So I think they've been really, really, really let free. And I think right now, if we've got a bylaw in place where they're illegal, then let's go after them with the taxes as well.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And actually in Alberta, that is happening in Canmore. They are taxing them as commercial entities, but in Ontario we can't, because the only way to do that is to zone the property different and assess it as commercial. And the last thing you want to do is zone that property commercial. So just the way that, Alberta's tax system and then the Ontario through the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, it doesn't allow us to do that here.
Follow up, then maybe it's time we get the province to get on board with Alberta and look at our tax system, because right now they're making, some of them are making, well, there's one up for sale for 10,000 a night, sleeps 22 on Crescent Harbor. So you know what? They can afford to pay those taxes. So I like your amendment to the part 3. I know that the clerk's office is working on something right now. I just spoke with them. So let's see where it goes from here, but I really don't think we should permit them. Staff have given us some information before. We've gone to court with information the staff have given us. We've lost, some we've won, but it's the council that will have to deal with this. The future council will have to deal with the decision that we make, and I think it's really unfair to them at this time.
Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 comments I'd like to make is, first of all, for me, I don't mind making hard decisions, and it has nothing to do with passing it to the next council, because we're going to we make those decisions all the time, and I certainly don't mind standing up and saying this is the way I voted. So for me, it comes strictly down to allowing commercial operation in residential zones, and there's just no room for that for me. It's black and white when it comes to that. But I would like some clarification on in the report, Part D zoning. It talks about how we have under bed and breakfast in terms of what that definition is, and that we don't allow ghost hotels. But historically, enforcement has been the issue. And then it says at the very last paragraph, it says, for this reason, staff are recommending the introduction of license regime, which will provide inspections as part of the granting of a permit. So my question here is, are we talking about a granting of a permit on, let's say, lakefront properties that says whole home hotels or ghost hotels are allowable? Or are we saying that we're granting a permit to operate a STA, but it can only be one where the resident lives there? So I like some clarification around what they're trying to state there, because to me that is where there's leverage to, if we go down this road, that we say whole home STAs are allowed along the lakefront. A, we lose all those cottage opportunities, and B, we are allowed, once we allow it, then we can't go back. So this is my biggest fear, is that once we allow something, that it's very, very difficult to undo. So this is why I'm so hesitant about moving forward tonight, where I'd rather sit back and say, use our existing and strengthen our existing bylaws, and see what happens at Oro-Medonte, take a better look at what's happening in Blue Mountain, and find out in terms of, is it working there? So I'll just ask for that clarification, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Verbosch.
I'm so sorry, Councillor Waters. I was reading that section, but I didn't see the reference that you were making. Can you repeat it?
Sorry, on the last paragraph under zoning, it says for this, oh shoot, I just lost my, there we are. For this reason, staff are recommending the introduction of licensing regime, which will provide inspections as part of the granting of a permit, and the new proposed offense where advertisement of the listing will be deemed operational. So it makes it easier to prosecute them. But I don't know whether or not you're talking about whole home STAs, which we might be allowing on the waterfront, or is this just talking about STAs in general where the owner lives there?
I think that was just in general, Councillor Fowler. A licensing regime, in order to apply for the permit, they would need to have the town staff conduct an inspection. So that gets town staff in to ensure compliance with the fire code. And then the second part of that refers back to that provision that I responded to Councillor Fowler about, which is the deemed operation in the event of advertisement. So where someone is advertising a short-term rental, we can deem them as operating and charge them for both advertising and operating. And then it would be up to the owner to prove in court that they are not in fact operating. I don't know if that answers your question.
Not really, no. So my question is, are we referring here to STAs where the owner lives there, or are we referring to STA, which is whole home or ghost hotel? Are we saying we're going to give a license to a ghost hotel, but this, I guess that's where I'm looking for the clarification.
I think that that's a generic statement that refers to whether council would choose option one, which is the licensing of all STAs, whether they be ghost hotels or the more residential type STAs, or option two, which was the scoped licensing bylaw that only applied to the ghost hotels on the shoreline. So it's more of a generic statement that speaks to if council adopts a licensing bylaw, get that inspection in.
I think I can help too. I think Councillor Waters, the answer is yes, it is licensing a ghost hotel, but it's licensing it for a limited number of nights, which then would make it not financially viable, at least according to the ones that have written into us and told us that.
Well, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. But I think the number is 90 days. 90 days, that's 3 months during the summertime. I think they can make a bundle where that still is still profitable for them to operate that. And when they're asking for $10,000 a night over 3 months, that's enough to pay the mortgage and more. So I guess I'm still stuck on the idea of allowing ghost hotels their foot in the door, because once it's there, and we can't do anything about it. So I'm still stuck on that piece. So thank you very much for that clarification, though.
Thank you, and I am that legal non-conforming piece is one I worry about as well. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Wow, what a debate. I agree with a lot with what Councillor Waters said there. I'm afraid licensing is like opening the door to whoever wants to come in, get a license, and set up a ghost hotel or do whatever. But I want a point of clarification there. If we do license them, say we can go in and inspect, can we go in anytime, or just initially when you get the license to go in and see how many bedrooms they got, how many beds or what? Or can we go in a week later when they're in there, go for another inspection? Because many of these people, they say, oh yeah, I've got 3 bedrooms. And there's like 3 double beds, which is 6 people. They'll just take another 3 double beds in each room, and it's 12 people, and we wouldn't know. And you know what? It becomes the neighbors that are policemen, and it causes bad blood. It really does. We've seen it here already, and there's got to be a way to stop these. We have Friday Harbor. Let them go to Friday Harbor. I mean, that's places set up for SDAs along the shoreline. These ghost hotels, unless there's somebody there that owns the cottage and lives there, I just can't see it. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I promise not to go on a rant this time, okay? Anyhow, one of the biggest things too is Councilor Van Berkel brought up, I've been at Friday Harbor and I've seen many a Murphy bed in there. And I'm sorry, but if we can't get into the house of these ghost hotels and there's a Murphy bed stuck in a, what do you call those little cottages down by the dock or whatever they are, or the garage has been converted with a Murphy bed, all you stick is a fake picture on the front. Nobody knows the difference. So there's so many ways to get around how many people can be in a bedroom or be in a living room or be in a dining room or whatever. That's another thing we have to deal with. So I think the recommendation is up on the board. Motion to amend is up there. And I think Mayor Dolan, yes. Enforcement to assist municipalities enforcement against ghost hotels. And you've said it. This is our main issue is ghost hotels. The main issue council hears from all the constituents who pay taxes in this town is the noise level and the abuse, the cursing that goes along with it, the drug use that is done on the patios that floats, the smell floats into their yards. Passing a bylaw allowing them, I just can't see it happening. So maybe take a vote on what's before us and take it from there. My only other alternative, I'll wait and see. Thank you.
Mr. Parkin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to confirm, so we did remove the original clauses 3 and 4. The one was in reference to municipal accommodation tax letter and asking for a report back from staff in a year after the bylaw has been changed. I just wanted to confirm that Deputy Mayor, that you wanted to keep those off. And that's what, so yeah, what we have on the screen is the original 3 and 4 have been removed and a new clause 3 referencing the ghost hotels has been added.
Councillor Waters, you're a seconder on this. If you have a moment to read it, and it ties in with the option that ghost hotels are illegal and we will go after them, and we have noise bylaws in place. It will enhance the bylaws to make sure that they can be done. So you take a look at it, Councillor Waters, let me know, please. Or any other member of council.
I have another request for a friendly amendment, Deputy Mayor, and that would be that staff do report back at whatever time, like maybe after the end of the summer, to, was there any success? Did we have any prosecutorial success? Did we have any, you know, did it work? Did this line of attack work?
Okay, but we're not going to have any prosecutions before November or before October, because the judges aren't doing any court dates right now. I mean, we've got some in the system already, so they're not accepting any court dates, so we're not going to get any solutions by October 24th. Oh, I've got a raccoon at my door, so. So anyhow, let's see.
Okay, I would request that the mayor's comment about staff reporting back is, it may not be on prosecutions, but just in terms of, you know, getting some feedback, because by September, you know, we'll have, the summer will be over. We'll know what type of complaints we've received. You know, has this helped or hindered? And, you know, what's happened, and we'll know what's happened in Oro-Medonte. We'll have a better idea of what's going on in town of Blue Mountain. So I would appreciate that piece, and then I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I can agree with that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. Just looking at the second line there with the recommendations with the attachments 9 and attachments 10. I'm looking through the entire 35 pages online here, and I can't find those attachments, so I don't even know what I'm voting on. I don't know what the new CPPS bylaw amendment or the zoning bylaw amendments are. I've not seen those in the 75 pages I have.
Sorry, it's attachment 9 and attachment 10 were pages 125 and 127 of the PDF. It makes some changes to the, perhaps Ms. Verbosch could explain it better than I can.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Councillor Nicol, have you found them now?
So in the online version, I'm looking at my computer, there's, in the PDF, there's 75 pages total. So I'm just looking for what page that may have been put on.
So there was the staff report, and then there were 10 attachments to the staff report. Perhaps Mr. Jerchow or Ms. Verbosch, you could.
Your Worship, I believe we're just working backwards from the end of the PDF. It's pages 72 and 74 of 75, I believe. Louise can correct me.
My apologies. Sorry, I work off of the Word version, so I wanted to pull up the PDF. And Mr. Gershaw is right. It starts at 72, Councillor Nicol, page 72.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm confusing everybody because I downloaded the entire PDF. So it's page 128 of 622. Other questions, comments? Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Worship. Definitely a good discussion. So I do see the need to be somewhat cautious with implementing a licensing bylaw. But I wanted a question answered. You know, if we amend this motion and we get some further information down the road suggesting that licensing could be an answer, is that seen as defeating this motion, and then it would take, you know, a different procedure to get it back on the floor? I guess that would be my first question.
Mr. Parkin or Ms. Toma?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Ices. So a couple of options. If new information came to light for whatever reason, it's possible that we could revisit the concept in considering the new information. If it was within 1 year from tonight or from the decision made by council, you can do, if it would be considered reconsideration, you can reconsider. You just need to have a 2/3 vote from council to reconsider an item. And if there was new information, it may be a good justification for reconsideration if you chose to do so at that time.
So within a year, it would take 2/3 vote to bring it back without something definite that would change the discussion. Okay. And then follow up on a different matter. I wondered about residents expecting some help with these ghost hotels, and so for us to say, you know, we just want to be harder with bylaw or enforcement. Do we have the resources to back that up? Are we suggesting that the resources we have right now are appropriate? They're just not, you know, my question is, will we have to add resources to do this and make a difference in the discussion?
Mr. Harris?
Through Your Worship, the Councillor Ices, any changes tonight or any adoptions by council, we have the staff power, the resources to enforce. If that answers your question.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to point out too, now maybe people just aren't calling in. Maybe they're calling their counselor instead of calling into the town. But the calls logged on the MORE system, which is the customer service line, identified 55 STA related calls dating back to July of 2018. And that of those 55 calls, they identified 16 independent residential addresses. And one of those addresses logged 24 calls. So is it a problem? It is definitely a problem. But is it a problem? Is it a, worldwide problem? It isn't. It looks like we've narrowed it down to about 30 or so units. And I've forgotten what the last report said and how many overall units we thought we had, about 300. So it's fairly scoped. It's just the trouble with dealing with those scoped ones and how we and I'm like Councillor Ices, I'm worried that people are going to think, okay, so we've got the tools we need now, we've got the enforcement, we can stop these things overnight. We can't. We're going to run into the problems that everybody else has run into. But we'll not, you know, as far as coming back and looking at it again, we'll keep working at this until we get it right. Mr. Jershow and I were talking about this earlier today, and he said to me, you know, years ago, we didn't know how to deal with cars, right? When we went from horse and buggy to car, we had to come up with a whole new set of rules around cars to regulate cars. So we need to learn how to regulate this. Mr. Jershow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before council votes on the motion on the screen, I just wanted to confirm the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Waters were satisfied with the timing of the report back in clause number 4. It would suggest a 1-year wait before a report back. I wonder if, you know, winter or spring of 2023 or sooner might be what you're looking for. Just wanted to confirm before a vote takes place.
Your Worship, I have no problem with moving that to under like a 9-month period or something, so we can take action quicker before next future council could take action before the summer season begins. And also, just in response to your comment, Your Worship, at the Moore report, I saw that here at the very bottom of that page, South Simcoe Police report having received 2 STA calls in 2019, 33 STA calls in 2020, 24 STA calls in 2021, and so far 3 STA calls. And unfortunately, there's a confidentiality in there, but their calls have gone up and up. And I'm sure this summer it'll continue to go up as people want to escape the GTA. So there's some more information we can all take in.
Councillor or Mr. Jershow, then Councillor Feller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to flag on the online chat that's happening amongst the leadership team. Someone's just raised a question of substance regarding the motion on the screen. I'd like to ensure I get that question answered before a vote takes place. So potentially requiring a short break. Just wanted to flag that.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Fowler and then we'll take a pause. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify something that you mentioned. You said there were 55 calls roughly between 2018 and 2022, with 24 of them being one specific house out of the 30 or so that we know of. Is that one? Did I understand that correctly? When you
I was just reading off the staff report. It was the very first line of the staff report, Councillor.
Okay. So in essence, what we have is one particular house that is causing near 50% of the problem. That's drawing the heat, and then the people that are actually being respectful of the neighbors and the clean communities bylaw and the noise and the vehicles and whatnot, they're not so much the issue so much as the ones who are not caring about anybody else. That being the case, I just this is why I support this, because we're targeting that specific home in the scenario. We're using the tools we have to reinforce the fact that their behavior is not acceptable, where other people are following the rules and not creating a disturbance. That's just a point I just wanted to add. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Why don't we take a break and Mr. Jershow, did you need a break?
I was going to recommend 10 minutes, Your Worship.
Thank you. We will come back at 9:50. 950. Thanks, everyone.
Your worship. It's interesting that as we're actually in this discussion, they're sending me a download, or just hopefully I get it, of a party taking place at a party house right at the moment. I'm just trying to get the address to send to Mitch Harris.
Deputy Mayor, make sure you copy customer service on there so it gets captured in the complaints. If you send it right to bylaw.
I sent it to Mitch already.
Yeah, but send it to customer service as well so that that'll lodge as a complaint.
Okay, I'll try and do that. Sometimes my phone doesn't allow me. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll just check in with Mr. Jershoff to see if we have any updates from staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. The question that was raised has been answered, and we can proceed with the motion that is on the screen.
Thank you. Any other final comments before we call the vote? And I believe it was Councillor Nicol asked for a recorded vote. Councillor Nicol.
Your worship, just my final comment on this. Well over a year ago, we asked staff to address the 300 or so short-term accommodations, of which they've identified 30 to 50 of them have had issues. Staff have asked us for better tools to help them address these. Ironic was the email I saw that the deputy mayor actually sent us all a video of a party house occurring right now. I recommend that staff or council, the next time somebody calls and complains about the issue, you can remind them that you had an opportunity to control these, but voted for or against a bylaw to try and give staff the power they need to address them. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? So we'll call the vote. Mr. Parkin.
Thank you, Worship. We have a recorded vote requested. I've got the list of members of council here in randomized order. I'll just call on you, and if you can indicate visually and turn on your microphone and indicate as well if you're in favor or against. Starting with Councillor Van Berkel.
In favor.
Councillor Payne.
In favor.
Councillor Orsatti.
Opposed?
Councillor Nicol.
Against.
Councillor Ices.
In favor.
Mayor Dolan.
Opposed.
Councillor Waters.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Favor.
And Councillor Fowler.
In favor.
That is 6 in favor, 3 opposed. That carries.
The motion carries. Thank you. And Mr. Parkin, can I ask you to leave your camera on for a minute because I believe we'll need a motion now to continue past hour of closure.
Yes, 10 o'clock.
So we'll mover and a seconder to continue till, let's say 11, and let's hope. Fingers crossed. Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? That is carried. Next item, item C2. That was the fire consolidation, and Councillor Van Berkel, you pulled that on my behalf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do I need a seconder or are you seconding?
Councillor Orsatti,
Yeah.
seconding.
Thank you. I think, Your Worship, the reason, this was pulled because this came to Bradford West Gwillimbury Council last night as well, which we all got briefed on. And I think they had many of the same concerns as we had, mainly cost. hiring of full-time firefighters. Are we still going to use our volunteers? I think they had a fairly good debate last night. What I've seen, Mr. Gershaw sent us all a good update on it. And they all voted unanimously in favor of doing this. So maybe we can get an update on what's going on, or, I hope this debate doesn't take as long as the last one, that's all.
I only wanted to bring it forward, Council, because it was quite a debate last night at Bradford, and to suggest that, I still believe that we should be, carefully moving in a direction that that looks further into this. To me, the big stumbling point is Bradford is not up to serve it. Like, they don't have the amount of firefighters that we do. And they're gonna, I believe if Chief Thomas is on, he can help me, but I believe there was approximately, they were required to staff up about 20 firefighters. And I just wanted to put that out there, that for me, that's the deal.
Yeah.
If they do not staff up to the same level of us, if we don't have equal staff, then that's a deal breaker on my part. Chief Thomas, any comments?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Mayor Dolan, and it has been made abundantly clear to the Bradford Council on several different occasions, including email from me officially yesterday before their council meeting, that their level of staffing is not adequate, and it is not the same as Innisfil's, and it is quite clear in the Ernst & Young report and in our staff reports that staffing level has to be harmonized on both sides before a consolidation can happen. I do believe that they have kind of reconciled with that fact. So they have been presented with a couple of different options that they will see in budget to get to the number of 20 very quickly and not over a long period of time, because I've made it quite clear it's not acceptable over a long period of time. It needs to be a very quick thing to happen so that they have the appropriate staffing level for their risk profile, and that would be matching Innisfil's.
Thank you. And then just a follow-up question would be, so if we go down this road and we've been referring this to as a marriage, so if we keep talking about this prenup and the staffing levels don't happen in the budget, is it too late to uncouple?
No, so this staff report, it does highlight the fact in I guess if I can use the term meat and potatoes of this, is between now and budget approval and in the first quarter of 2023, we will put together the governance committee that's suggested and recommended in option 3, which will be made up of 3 members of the Innisfil Council, 3 members of the Bradford Council as voting members, and then the 2 CAOs, Mr. Gershaw and Mr. McKnight, and myself. And we will draw up the draft agreement. This committee will, in effect, have no power, but we will draw up the agreement with both municipalities' needs in mind to present to council in conjunction with the budget process in both towns, which would include the appropriate staffing level. And once the budget is passed with the appropriate staffing level, then that agreement could be signed to start, but that agreement will also include benchmarks or targets that must be met, and an out clause for lack of a longer term, given the time that we have.
Thank you, Chief Thomas. Councillor Van Berkel, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have the same concerns. One of my concerns is also, I see that they only have one hall and they need another hall. How long would this take? Like, are we going to be servicing part of their municipality now, or like their north end, our south end?
Chief?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Van Berkel. That is kind of a 2-part answer. Their staff, when they get the staff, would work out of their current Station 1, and we are able to respond appropriately from there. There is some work that needs to be done. The Ernst & Young report and the latest census report that came out in 2021 does show growth, and the recommendation for a station location slightly north of Bond Head where it's anticipated now. So that is already work that is in progress to find an appropriate location, secure land, et cetera, through the budget process. So to answer your question, they can appropriately respond from the current station they have until there is another location that's appropriate. Having said that, I'm pretty sure council is aware that we have already a paid agreement. So along the 15th in Bradford, Innisfil Cookstown Station is already closer. And so if they respond to a call in Bradford, they are the closest unit, so that they're the most appropriate, and they Bradford gets a bill every time that we respond. So that type of thing would just stay in place until station locations could be harmonized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, and I think in here too, I know that Innisfil has a higher level of service than Bradford, and I wouldn't want to see that level of service to be diminished here in Innisfil to accommodate the lack of hiring by Bradford and the lack of training by Bradford with the full-timers. So that's the thing that I will watch carefully that they don't ask for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling it. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Sadi.
I just want to make sure that, that like Bradford, that we're still going to be using our volunteers to full capacity. They're kind of important to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other councillors and to the municipality. They served us for many years before we had full-time fire departments, and they're still a big part of our community. So,
Chief.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Van Berkel. Absolutely, our volunteers are A1. They're fantastic. We cannot work without them. They form part of our level of service, and they always will. We will always have volunteers in every station. We absolutely need them to be able to respond and meet our response criteria and our level of service, and we welcome them to stay. In fact, council will see we're short between 12 and 15 right now to our full complement. You'll see a big recruiting drive with signs, et cetera, very shortly to get our numbers up to the 85, starting probably next week or by the 1st of July anyway. So that they're invaluable. We can't live without them. They will outlive me here, and I think all of us as a valuable part of our community.
Thank you, Chief, for the reinsurance.
Thank you, Chief. Great news. Councillor Sadi.
Sorry, just getting my mute button there. Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel, for that question, because that was an important one. And I just wanted to say that, this is a great report, a lot of work that's gone behind it. Thank you, Chief Thomas, and to the town of Bradford and staff as well, because I think that we already have what works for us. There's going to be a lot of work that still goes into creating this draft. But what we have is we already have a good partnership and a relationship with the town of Bradford, with sharing South Simcoe Police. And I think that the pressures to find more efficient and affordable ways, especially capital and operating, of providing services in the future, this is the right way to go to look at this draft. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Yeah, I agree. It's the way to move forward, and I think Bradford saw that last night, and they voted appropriately for it. My question is that the province had given some money to municipalities to find efficiencies in terms of this type of activity. So I just wanted to ask whether or not there was funding available to help this process move forward in terms of making it easier for either Innisfil or Bradford to make this happen sooner and faster. Thank you.
Chief?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep, through you, Mayor Dolan. I believe that there was a small pocket of funding, and I believe it went to the upper tiers. It did not come to the local level, and I believe that's formed part of what the county review did. But that predates me in coming into the process of the consolidation report that was done. So I would have to double check that for accuracy, and I can get back to you on that.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cruikshank, do you have an answer?
I would just, thank you, Your Worship. I would just add, a lot of that funding that was allocated over the past few years, has been put to use within the town of Innisfil. So there's not really spare money lying around. We have been conscious of the fact that this work would continue. So if that money is available, we'll use it for this purpose. But there's not sort of a fresh opportunity for funding. Certainly keep an eye on that with the new provincial government coming in and a new provincial budget forthcoming this summer, though.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think there might be worthwhile even just going back and saying, okay, we found the efficiencies. Can you help us make this transition happen so we can get to those efficiencies that you wanted to see? So just an opportunity I thought we might explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, we did get some modernization funding. In fact, Minister Clark chose Innisfil to make the province-wide announcement for the modernization funding in 2019, or maybe it was 2018. I can't remember. All in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously, Chief. Thank you. Next item was C4, and it was the Deputy Mayor who pulled it.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to speak on this. I need a seconder, please. I think Councillor Van Berkel. Thank you. I have a little problem with this sort of proposed amendments here. It once again speaks of taking away responsibility from council or knowledge of council know what's happening within the municipality. And the one thing I think I heard in this term when I got back was, who's running the town? Is it the staff or is it council? And I'm not knocking staff and I'm not knocking the current CAO, but there seemed to be a couple of times in the beginning things happened in a councillor's ward. The councillor wasn't even aware of it, that was happening. We had to contact staff when it was taking place and went, oh yeah, this was approved, by management, blah, blah, blah. So, and I remember back about 4 years ago, I started to talk about standing committees, which we used to have on council many years ago, which were effective when a council member attended some of these senior management meetings, not to speak, but to listen and report back to council. This again is taking away information that council should be making these decisions. I've read through it here, some of the people that can be removed in power, negotiations of sort like such as Coinberry Limited, lease agreements. We should be in on some of those because some that have happened in the past, I really wouldn't nod hello to in a second. So once again, I'm going to ask for this to be deferred because I think future council, if this is according to Councillor Nicol, there's going to be 5 or 6 new councillors. They need to know what's going on in the town and not find out after the fact. And so I don't feel this is really fair to the new council coming forward. And I would like to have this deferred. Thank you.
So, Deputy Mayor, your motion is to defer. Is there a particular time, and just to it'd be helpful to the clerks if, when you know you're going to be putting an alternate motion forward, the deputy clerk always sends us an email out saying,
Quite aware of it. I'm quite aware of that. And this decision wasn't just made this afternoon. There was some going back and forth. And when a certain hour, I don't like to have changes to the agenda after 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon thereof. But I spent a lot of time this evening, even while we were debating, thinking about this. So it's just been done.
Okay, so there's a motion to defer. And so now we're speaking to the motion to defer. Any other questions or comments on this? There's one item I think would be a problem to defer because it's caused us a problem in the past. So it would be the item about amendments to the Town of Innisfil's parking bylaw, resident permit parking only. So quite often staff will get a call from somebody who's having a wedding at their home or a birthday party or some special event. And because now we've signed more of the no parking on the streets, especially around Innisfil Beach Park, they call into the town. I know Patty McLaughlin, who has those music festivals, they go to the town looking for an exemption to the no parking bylaw for their special event. But we're not meeting again till August. So if somebody's having a special event between now and August the 10th, they're out of luck because council's not there to approve it. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Actually, I had to deal with this with staff this past couple months as well. And I think I left it up to staff to find a solution. As we know in bylaws and procedures, there's always sort of a way around it to make exemptions easily. And I don't think that's a key reason for letting the rest of this go through. Staff have made exceptions without coming to council in the past. And I think that can continue as the way it's been until the new council has a time to review that. You know, they're giving away some.
I think we just lost the deputy. Mr. Dershell?
Your worship, I hope that's just a connectivity issue. Suggest we give him a minute or two to call back in.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any other comments on this item? Well, actually, we maybe shouldn't. We should wait till the deputy gets back on so he can hear the comments as well. That's okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to say perhaps his hydro has gone because it's very windy up here. So it could be the weather.
Oh, he's back on now.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, so it's just we just took a break there while you were getting back on, Deputy Mayor. So, but
It was the computer technology telling me to shut up.
Councillor Nicol had his card up.
Thank you, Your Worship. The way I read the report here, staff are only asking for a couple of new items to be added to what is always or traditionally happen as well, especially in an election year. So I don't see any concerns or any reason to defer this. I think this is not something unusual, and I think for continuity of the corporation, nothing is out of the ordinary as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler.
I have a question, if possible, for our CAO. If you can answer it, it'd be appreciated. The non-disclosure agreements, how would they directly affect the wards and any happenings within the wards? If something occurs in such a scenario where this comes into play, is this kept from council, or that's where I'm having the question in regards to this, because that's the one sticking point for me. NDAs means no one can talk about it. So if the councillor gets brought into a situation where an NDA is signed and they're unable to, one, address, two, understand it, or three, learn about it, that excises the councillors from the decision-making process. That's a bit of a sticking point for me. I was wondering if I get some clarification on how that would affect.
Mr. Dershell?
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Through your worship, I'll ask Mr. Melanishin to add to what I'm going to say here. Let me start by saying in general, these proposals are brought forward in the spirit of just really operational and administrative efficiency. It's not about keeping council in the dark or diminishing transparency. I can tell all of you, I'm personally committed to ensuring council is aware of what's happening in our community and the decisions being made within the administration. Specifically on the NDAs, I'm hoping, I can't see all the boxes on the screen, but I'm hoping Mr. Melanishin can turn on his camera and perhaps add or identify the other staff who can speak specifically to that issue.
Mr. Dershell, I can probably speak to the NDAs just because that was my idea. Just because of the sheer number of NDAs that we get through town, oftentimes it's just for preliminary conversations with either service providers. It tends to fall within managerial discussion. So this is really just an opportunity to let council know that these things are done routinely. But to have council comment on NDAs, I don't think it would be a matter of great importance to council. they tend to be really routine documents. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but.
Thank you. Anything to add, Mr. Melanesian?
Yeah, just as far as, sorry, through your worship to council, the NDAs too are typically organization to organization, and it's not necessarily person to person. So it's sort of innocuous. It's a broader, larger scope of, and to spend council's time weighing in on whether we should sign an NDA with another organization. As to Ms. Verbosch says, it's probably not best practice from a management perspective. It won't impact council. And very similar to with the Coinberry report, the Coinberry agreement is a zero risk, $0 agreement that's just that has no impact on the organization other than providing a very simple service to residents should they choose to use it. So these are just a couple, very simple requests that will streamline council governance, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Melanesian. I know Councillor Van Berkel will remember that back in the day and in the 94-95 term of council, the council agenda had every single check, the check number, who it was paid to, how much it was. There was about 25 to 50 pages of checks that had to be approved by, and we'd go through them and somebody would ask, well, how come we paid the cleaner $20 more than we paid them last week? We all know that's not what we're here for. We're here to steer the ship up here, not to be down on the oars. But having said that, I would ask for a friendly amendment in case this passes to defer with the exception of the parking exemptions, because I really do believe that I get several calls in the summer with people who want to have that one special day, and without calling us all in for a special council meeting in the middle of July, this wouldn't be able to happen. So I would ask for that amendment.
I can concur with you, Mayor Dolan, on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. Yes, and there really is only a few that are highlighted. It's not the whole thing. So the ones that are highlighted are the new. So you're talking about giving the authority for staff training. I don't need that to come to council to allow that for staff training. And then there is the parking, and then there is the lease agreements for the town office, for the town offices there. I just see the importance of that coming to council, that I trust our CAO to handle that. And as Mr. Melanesian explained, Coinberry, there's no cost to us. It's just a zero transfer way of receiving money. The sender pays the cost, so any arrangement, it doesn't cost us. It's just a way of receiving money.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're right. Back in 95, we went over every check, and it sometimes took a long time to do that. But I can understand where the deputy mayor is coming from, because slowly over the years, these bylaws have been coming in every year, every term, more and more come in, and it takes away more and more each year from council. And pretty soon, we're just going to sit there and say yes, no. We won't know what's going on. And I think that's what the deputy mayor is coming from, that, over the years, so much has been taken away from us. We have nothing to say anymore. And, or he feels that we have nothing to say anymore. I certainly see the difference from back in 95 till now, where, there's a lot less to do. And I have that feeling too sometimes. So I understand where he's coming from.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Just a quick follow-up to Councillor Asadi. I think you'll remember back, we were dealing with an in-camera issue, and I can't speak about it, but I think council have been aware of the situation with the lease agreement with a town facility. I'm sure we would have had a better outcome, and I'll just leave it at that. But we have missed the boat before when it's come to town facility lease agreements, and I'd like to not see that happen again. That's one of the ones that got my goat. Thank you.
Let's be careful with what we're talking about here, Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering if the mayor is fine and other council with including with the parking, the people and talent services that the director of people and talent can look after the staff training and development programs, because that's what you're, if that not be deferred. That's item 1, highlighted at the end in yellow.
It would be up to the mover and the seconder.
I don't want to nitpick this all to death, but sometimes it's nice to know what kind of staff training they're getting, because when we receive awards, we want to know that, hey, this is the staff training that we as council approved. And, it's kind of nice to, hey, we approved this and we got an award for it. So, hey, it works hand in hand. So sometimes it's good to know the small, minute details of something and not just have us hit it in the head later. I'm not a micromanager, but at the same time, I do like to know if I hear a customer complaint that it goes right to my ears and I can solve it at that slow level. So it doesn't hurt to know something a little bit more.
Ms. Verbosch?
Sorry, Mayor Dolan, through you. Just to clarify, the P&T agreements are actually through P&T's learning management software. It would be service agreements with other municipalities where Innisfil would be creating software and licensing that out to other municipalities. So it's not about staff training, it's about regular or routine service agreements with other municipalities where the town actually has an opportunity to recoup some funds from that. And it's similar to what we've done with economic development with their routine agreements with the incubator, and almost similar to what we do with IT, where we're sharing services with other municipalities there as well. So it's not about staff training, it's about licensing out software that our P&T will be developing to other municipalities for a fee.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Verbosch. So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the deferral? Those opposed of the deferral? Okay, that is opposed, or that loses. So back to the original motion. I'm guessing you don't want to move that, Deputy Mayor. So is there a mover and a seconder? So Councillor Orsatti, Councillor Nicol are moving in the original motion. All in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Next is item C8, and that's Councillor Orsatti.
Just bear with me one moment, Your Worship. I just need to pull that up on my screen here. And I wanted to pull this one. I need a seconder, Councillor Nicol. Thank you very much. Just because this item, and I'm sure Mr. Bell is still not online, but he may be watching. It's not registered, it's listed. And the difference is listed means that if you ever wanted to take down the building, the town has, I believe it's so many days to be notified before that happens. But the reason I wanted to pull this one was just to clarify in this one in page, sorry, hang on, page 2 of this report, it says that the owner has made changes to the exterior of the building. So there's a picture that's included with this report, and I had sent him an email to find out, is this picture current? Because the description from the owner does not match the current picture. So the owner says that the noted heritage attributes, including the porches, the gingerbread trim, the windows, the brickwork, the woodwork, have been replaced with modern materials such as pressure-treated lumber, aluminum, vinyl siding due to deterioration, and safety does not support its historic character. So, and it mentions about the 2-tiered veranda, and that when I look at the picture and then the overhead shot that's included, they almost don't match. So I'm wondering what happens in a situation like this, that the exterior of the building no longer matches how it got listed, and does it still stay on a listing? Do we have an updated picture? I just want to know about this before I voted on it. The two just didn't match.
Mr. Jacob.
Your worship, through you to Councilor Rosati. I'm not sure of the. I think it is not a fairly recent picture, but I think within the last 5 years. Under as a listed property, there are property owner is allowed to make renovations and whatnot to the property itself. It doesn't impact necessarily the overall criteria for listing a property, because there are three criteria for a property. The architecture and the heritage features are just one of three components. So although technically the property owner may have made some repairs and restorations to the house that may not necessarily be of sort of enhance the heritage attributes, it doesn't necessarily disqualify it from being listed. And it also, if there's additions to the property and whatnot, renovations, that is something that doesn't necessarily disqualify it for being listed.
Councillor Waters.
I was also going to mention too is that some of the renovations or things he's fixed up, all he's really done is made the renovations, the building more durable with alternative materials. So it looks like he's kept the character in terms of the Victorian style of the building, but he's just used more durable materials, pressure treated wood. So I don't think he's changed the character all that much. It still looks in its original state. He's done an excellent job with it. So those types of changes, I think, that we would welcome in terms of, as long as he's not changing it to a flat roof and changing the whole style of it. So I think what he's done so far is admirable, and the materials he's chosen are preferred because they're durable, much more sustainable. So. And I agree with Councillor Rosati that it's a listing. It's all it does is says that he plans to tear it down. We'll know, and we can act, because we've had that happen before. We've lost a historical building because it wasn't listed. So I think keeping it listed is a good idea because it's a beautiful building, and I don't think we'd want to see it change that much. Thank you.
Councillor Payne and then Councillor Nickel.
Sorry, it takes me so long to find the button. Anyway, sorry. Regarding the situation here, I don't know if he realizes that if he does put it for a designation, he's able to get a property tax relief for one. And also doing that, it shows the heritage of the building and the history of the building and the history of the architecture and the culture. And I think that's what we're all about in the committee and the group, whatever. So I think if he knew what was available for him and how it's better for the home, and I would just like to see it designated.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor
Thank you.
Your Worship, I know Councillor Rosati did reach out to me about this, and again, this is only to be listed, not designated, and it just recognizes the historical attributes of this home, and it provides some time to prevent demolition. I did actually drive past today. Obviously, you can't see everything from the road, so I did drive into the driveway, and I do see that there's still ornate trim, at least on the west side of the roof line. I couldn't see the front or the rear of the building. It may not be the exact same as what's in the picture from 2009 in the report, but I think it just protects a historical piece of Innisfil from being demolished at least. But yeah, I think that the as Councillor Waters said, the bones of the building are still very, very, very solid, and it's just protecting a part of heritage for Innisfil. Thank you.
Councillor Van Berkel?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I agree, you know, it's a beautiful house. And, but you know what? We seem to be getting this all the time, you know, people objecting to this. Maybe that's our fault. Maybe we're not educating people or talking to them enough because, you know.
That's correct. You're not educated.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead, Councillor Van Berkel.
Because I just feel, you know, this is at least the third or fourth time that somebody has come and said, you know, we don't want our house on the heritage list. Are we not explaining it to them right? I don't know. I mean, I think if it was my house, I'd say go ahead, you know, because you take pride in it. But I don't know. I just can't understand why we get so many complaints, you know, of people that are being put on the heritage list and they don't want it.
I don't think the act is very transparent. Talking about designation and listing and what the difference is. So, Mr. Jacob, any comment on that?
Your Worship, through you to members of council. So this process now of the ability of a property owner to officially object to being listed, designating a property as a completely separate process under the Act. It's a lot more formal. This period of objection for listing came into effect on July 1st, 2021. Previous to that, there wasn't anything in the Act that actually formally allowed, or maybe not allowed, but formally recognized the objection from the property owner. So this is a new process, and we found we were looking for some best practices and whatnot on how to object to it. We do make a real effort to engage the property owner as a best practice. The Municipal Act, or the Ontario Heritage Act currently does not. It's not. You don't have to notify a property owner prior to a property being considered for a listing. But as a best practice, the Heritage Committee does. It's unfortunate in this case, we did send notice to the property owner to the address that we had on file here at the town for property taxes. But in speaking with the property owner on several occasions, it appears that one of the, I believe it was one of the owner's children were in the process of moving houses. So it was actually sent to the address that we had on file was sent to the old address, and they didn't get the initial engagement piece inviting them to reach out to staff or to come to the meeting to further discuss. So we do, as a best practice, engage the property owners. We invite them to attend a Heritage Committee meeting to discuss what it means to be a listed property, what the provisions are under the Act, and what are the requirements as a property owner. And really, it's only, as been stated earlier, is just the 60-day notice. There is no restrictions on any additions to the property, any repairs, anything like that. It's just that it would just require 60-day notice. So now that the committee is finished, our schedule of meetings has finished for the term, we can certainly go back and look further at our engagement process if it's something that maybe we need to revise to have further engagement and whatnot. So definitely be happy to report back to the new council on that as the new committee is formed. But yeah, this is a new process. This is the first objection that the council has had to consider. So it is a bit of a learning process for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Next is item C10, and that was actually me, but Councillor Fowler pulled it on my behalf. Can I ask somebody to second that for Councillor Fowler? Deputy Mayor Davidson. So I had one question, and maybe it's premature, and this goes to either C10 or C11. But there was an email come in that the resident on, I think it's Bardo Street, thought that all the construction was going to happen through their subdivision, and I thought that the construction would happen off Bel Air Beach Road. But I don't even know whether that would be better for later on, like not really the OPA. Is there someone from planning that? Oh, Ms. Nordstrom. Hello.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, so that's certainly the sort of construction management would be something we'd be looking at closely through the site plan. And between the two, there are two new accesses proposed off that major road. So that's where we'd be looking to focus much of that construction access to mitigate as much as possible disturbance to the existing residents.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments on that item? Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I drove down, it's in my ward, and I drove down there, and I I couldn't see that it was just going to be one axis, as Ms. Nordstrom says, and I thought it was a little bit premature to even, nobody's really looked at it yet, so it hasn't come. The plan hasn't come to council yet, so.
Thank you. The only other question I had was in that list of concerns people had, and then there was mitigations. It talked about, and I don't know if I marked it, it talked about consulting with Metrolinx about whistle sensation. And my comment to that would be, if we're going to do it there, we better be prepared to do it throughout the municipality, because we will, we've always done that. We've had requests over the years for Guildford or for Stroud, and we've always said, well, if we're going to do one, we have to do all of them. So that would be my only comment.
So in response through you, Your Worship, to your question was the whistle cessation would be something that could be looked at through further negotiations and reporting back to council, but would require some infrastructure and a certain design to ensure that pedestrian crossing is dealt with differently. That isn't always available when in established and built communities around a rail crossing. So it's something that we've discussed with the applicants, and they're open to discussing further as part of what a community benefit might look like under what opportunities we have under a community benefit regime as that is changing provincially. So.
Thank you for that. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it. Anyone else have anything to add? Councillor Waters?
Just a quick question around the noise sensation or the whistle sensation that we just talked about. Do we require developments to increase sound attenuation in the buildings, like triple pane glass, extra insulation, those types of things to soundproof those buildings from the train tracks? Do we require that, or is that something we could consider? Thank you.
Ms. Nordstrom?
So I'm just plugging in my earphones because sometimes my sound doesn't work so well. So through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Waters' questions, yes, we do require that there be sort of detailed noise studies done, and those recommendations be put into the design of the homes that are built closest to meet the certain requirements for sound, minimum sound or maximum sound intrusions or minimum sound requirements inside the dwellings themselves. So that is something that is through the draft plan conditions that is secured, and through either site plan or draft plan conditions, will be ensuring that appropriate panes or appropriate building materials are used for the homes that are closest to or most impacted by the sound of the train station or the train infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next is item G2, and that was the Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. I thought I would just pull this forward for council's information. I think you spoke in really strong defense of the library at the county council when we were dealing with this. And I think Kenneth Fowler, Councillor Fowler, and Councillor Sadi, they sit with the library. And they know that there's a letter coming forward from the board regarding their objections, because this could impact Innisfil in the future with a reduction in services and also a cost that could impact us with the decision that the county made. So I know it puts you in an odd position being deputy warden and also being mayor of Innisfil, where, you know, we're being asked basically to open up our library to the entire Simcoe County, and then we're the ones paying for it. And also too, when I look at some of the information that I was provided, is that, you know, the librarian that was at the county, she just got a raise to the sunshine list of 100,000, and the new position that's been put forward is 160,000. And I feel that the county's trying to cover up, get another area of the county paid for by the library system, which would be the IT department. So I have my objections to this. I did vote against it. Bradford's made it clear they're not happy with it either. So just council be aware, or future council be aware, you may have to really defend our library board in the future and the costs that are associated with it. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Orsatti, I think you had an amended motion.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Davidson has the motion here to defer this. I agree with this. Both Councillor Fowler, as the Deputy Mayor said, we sit on the library board, and this would be preferred to defer this until the August meeting so that the recent library board minutes and agenda can be attached with this so that you see the full picture and get an understanding from the Innisfil Library and where we sit as well. And want to thank the Mayor, Your Worship, and Deputy Mayor for fighting hard for change for us and speaking out. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler.
Just to add to Councillor Orsatti's point, when we had this discussion with the library board, it became apparent that the people who are making decisions for what is coming down the pipe is they don't have the same relationship our council does with the local library. We're very much involved. There's communication back and forth. We're very much involved with the community. So I agree with Councillor Orsatti and thanking you both for fighting as hard as you did, because it seems to be that there's certain townships that don't have the same connection that we do with the library board and what they provide to the community and the great work they do. So thank you for drawing attention to it and acknowledging it.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing what the board comes up with. I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and I think that we should listen to what the board thinks about once they've been able to ask the questions that they need. You know, the Deputy Mayor and I identified concerns about losing our multilingual books, and really the other worry was about the county as a whole and not just about Innisfil, because worried about some of the smaller libraries, not that maybe don't have the resources that say Innisfil does. But let's just say I hope I'm wrong, and but we'll leave it with I see CEO and President Erin Skuchmari is here if she had anything to add, but I would even maybe want to amend that further to say it be deferred to the August council meeting, and that we receive either a delegation or a letter from the library board on what their thoughts are as to what the effect this will have.
No problem, Your Worship. Anything to help it, I think we need to really consider it all, and council be fully aware how it's going to impact us. So thank you.
Ms. Skuchmari, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, nothing more to add. Just thank you, Mayor Dolan and Deputy Mayor Davidson, also for what you said and what you stood up for with County Council. And many thanks to our library board reps, Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Fowler as well. I can definitely say that the library board would appreciate the opportunity to come back at the August 10th meeting with a delegation or with a report, just highlighting all of the information that we have to date and the impacts that we see that this will have on our residents.
Thank you, Ms. Bucciamari. Okay, seeing no other hands, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Next is a rise recommendation, and that would be moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we have adoption of the Committee of the Whole recommendations, moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. There's no notice of motion, to which I've lost my spot, sorry. Are there any announcements for members of council? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Cognizant of the hour, I'll be very, very quick. Just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to enjoy some amazing roast beef dinners with a bunch of friends and neighbors, thanks to the Guildford United Church, right before our last meeting on June 15th. And to let all of council know and the rest of the residents that they have a barbecue planned for August 20th as well. I truly enjoyed attending the 15th annual Shearing Crescent Father's Day Lawnmower Race on June 18th. It was a lot of fun. I posted some stuff on Facebook for that. Happy to be at all three of our neighborhood nights events this month that were put on by staff. And Wyatt and I definitely had a lot of fun playing some games and spending our time at Onion Fest this past weekend, as well as the ribs. He had sauce to his ears by the time we were done there. And since we're actually going to be out for a couple of weeks now, just a reminder that the Guildford Community Hall has its bottle drive on July 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I did attend the Onion Fest, and I'll tell you what, I didn't get a bloomin' onion, but I didn't even get a free bag of onions, but I came back and I made my own bloomin' onion. So I really enjoyed it. I thought the dance troops were amazing. With the winds and the conditions that the people up there were under on Saturday was horrific. So a shout out to all of them that survived, and for the volunteers, I just want to say kudos, because you really weathered through the weather. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Van Berkel?
Yes, Your Worship, I just want to say kudos to End Services for the repairs in Cookstown on the water, that they handled that very well. And the water's safe to drink again in Cookstown.
Thank you, Councillor. Although there was mixed reaction, because that also meant the opening of Highway 89 and the traffic came back. So, so it was a win-lose. Any other announcements? Councillor Orsatti?
I just want to say tonight is a great example that council may have a difference of opinions. We're passionate about a lot of items, but we work well as a team, and there's no mudslinging, and we respect. And I think tonight was a great example of that. And I want to say I'm proud of this this team, and it's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Councillor Orsatti. Any other announcements? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say what a great time I had with Councillor Waters golfing in the Mayor's Golf Tournament there last Monday, I believe it was. It was a great event, and it really showcased what a great community Innisfil has, and the fact that we raised a bunch of money for the Community Foundation. I'd also like to tell the residents that we did have the scoreboard fairly well covered, you know, with Councillor Nichols' team kind of at the top, and then Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Waters and our team was kind of at the bottom of the list. So we had the whole range going there.
Thank you, Councillor. We were all winners, over $69,000 for the Innisfil Community Foundation. And, you know, it's called the Mayor's Tournament in name only. It should be called the Karen Shea and Team Tournament. They put months and months of effort into it. I got an email from one of the participants who said to me that he had been at the Canadian Open the weekend before our tournament, and he thought they should hire Karen Shea to organize their tournament because ours was better organized than the Canadian Open. So a great, and I know she will be blushing now and saying she had a whole team to work with her, and I know she did. And thanks to the entire team because it was a beautiful day. I also wanted to say that it was an honor to be at the first raising of an Indigenous flag in Innisfil during National Indigenous Peoples Day. And I also, big shout out, I haven't posted the picture yet, but I had a wonderful time at Garrett and Diane Altena's 70th wedding anniversary. And boy, he can jive pretty good for a 90-year-old. I was really impressed. Was a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you for inviting me, Councillor Payne. And then two big retirements this week. Mary Lynn West Moynes, the president and CEO of Georgian College, retired on Friday. And then yesterday I attended a retirement celebration for Janice Scott, president and CEO of RVH. So two really powerful women who've done a lot for our community over the last few years. And speaking of powerful women, I just wanted to take a moment and thank and give my best wishes to Mary Nordstrom. This is her last council meeting with us. Mary, you've been an incredible leader in our planning department, always the calm voice. I'm sure you never want to hear the initials MCR ever again, but I wish you all the best going forward, and we'll miss you dearly, and thank you for everything. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll have the confirming bylaw, please, and would ask that Councillor Waters and Councillor Fowler move and second the confirming bylaw, and adjournment at
Or all in favor?
all in favor, and 10:51 p.m. So adjournment by Councillor Payne and Councillor Nickel. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. It was a long meeting, but we got through it all. And the prize for getting through it all is we took July off. So enjoy your summer and are part of it. And we'll see you all on August the 10th, hopefully, unless we have some emergency, but fingers crossed. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Good summer, everybody. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Safe.